Boop.
All right, now there's 4 guys now instead of 3 guys.
And some fries.
And unfortunately, no fries.
I'm so hungry.
I'd love to have some fries, but
All we got is guys.
guy 1,
Guy.
guy 2,
Guy.
guy 3, guy 4.
And this is guy 5.
Okay. So, hey guys, there's not enough room for the 5th guy.
Yeah, he's sitting over there. Oh, yes.
Yes.
The intelligible writing.
The notepad of destiny. What was...
Holy in its scripture.
All right.
You guys want to start with?
I feel like we should start with one of the questions, and then we can do
Okay.
topics.
What's the one that isn't
was the
modernist
question?
related?
Let me see.
My
communism.
philosophical dudes.
Huh?
What is
Communism. Oh, wait.
That was one of them.
Postmodernism
There's
is
also
communism in disguise.
It's all
What
the same.
is the main topic for this podcast?
Each podcast, we are doing kind of like a different topic. At the end of each podcast, we come up with some questions or a topic to talk about next time.
Okay.
More or less based on... I wouldn't really say it's based on what we talked about last time, but...
yeah. It's just whatever.
It's just whatever.
So it goes.
It's just interesting things that we
Well,
want to think about.
It fits in...
You know, you got
The world of
to have your
philosophy.
main points. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah,
them.
and that's philosophy.
So today
Boom.
we're talking about postmodernism,
The
and
topic.
maybe a little bit of modernism as a topic. But beforehand, we're going to talk about if communism will always lead to millions of deaths. That's literally what I wrote.
I think we should just, like, instead of saying millions of deaths, just... Will
Lead to tyranny?
communism always lead to tyranny, or just...
Dictatorship.
Yeah. Or fail, ultimately.
I think there's not enough evidence, even though it happened a few times. I don't think that guarantees.
It happened a few very important times.
Like the
Yeah.
biggest
No, I
areas
get
that it
that.
possibly could
And-
have for a long period of time. So,
Yeah.
like...
I feel like there's enough evidence.
I just feel like it's not guaranteed. I don't like communism.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not
don't
in
get me wrong.
support
It's
of
definitely not
communism.
guaranteed. It's not just because obviously inside of it doesn't say kill tens of millions of people with a smiley face at the end,
Yeah.
like a winky face.
No, I mean, like, I get that, and I get that, like, what you're insinuating is that
It just
like,
always ends up that way.
communism, yeah, it will always lead to that as
Yeah.
a thing. I think that, who knows, maybe like 1,000 years down the line, society will be so structurally different, and our technology will be so different that maybe that ends up being
That's
better.
just
Who knows?
so far down the line.
You could
Yeah,
have,
exactly.
You can have
That's
so
what I'm
much.
saying.
You can have so much technology, but really it comes down to the power structure.
Well, yeah, think about it. Like,
In a country, for communism to work, you got to have
Yeah.
some sort of checks and balances instead of one overarching government entity that's going to take control of everyone
I think you
in the
guys
state. You know.
yeah.
have yet to be enlightened by Postmodernism, the
Post-Modernism.
greatest form of communism there is. No, it's. I guess I'm the torch
You
for
are-
the darkness that is this room.
Show me the
You are
way.
So
the
show me the way. So the way of Postmodernism is essentially, it was started by like this Argentinian communist guy, and I think he was originally
his
like a
name Possad?
Trotsky. Yeah, Possad.
Oh my God, I've already figured it out.
And basically, he said that the future of humanity is in both total nuclear annihilation and aliens.
Oh, yeah, we did talk about that.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it. And basically, you know, it's once we fuck ourselves up, we should accelerate that process. So, you know, World War III comes as soon as possible, and then the aliens will come. They'll enlighten us on communism, because that's the only form of government aliens can have is communism. And
Now, what kind of basis are we talking here for the
Completely
aliens?
factual.
What?
we've never spoken with aliens, but we can
kind
safely
of-
assume that they're communists.
And
Oh,
we can
okay.
safely assume that they will come when World War III happens.
I'm just talking about like what kind of context clues you got.
Honestly, I am not the most enlightened on Postmodernism.
You're just a torch.
What, do you
not
think
a
he is
brazier.
Possad? He's just the messenger.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Are you sure it wasn't just like on a
He knows
newspaper
part of this.
article you happen to pick up?
Like
the
it's
way
an
to
actual,
Chipotle?
like there are actual still Posadas around. Like it died when the guy died, but there
And
are
they
still.
all voted for Trump.
Are they? Are you saying? Wait. Wait,
we're
when did
here.
this happen?
It has come.
It was like,
Wait, where are the aliens?
What year?
It's Trump.
honestly, I don't know. I think it was
Trump is the
the
alien.
Like, when did this guy?
Because it was definitely after World War II when it happened.
That's why he's
Okay.
working with
Yeah,
Trump.
and then I think he was inspired by. He was obviously inspired by Hitler, even though he was a communist. He liked that, you know.
Weren't we all
Hitler.
inspired by Hitler?
And one reason.
I don't think I can say that.
But yeah, I mean,
Interesting. And then when did this man die?
80s,
80s?
70s, 80s.
Okay,
Like
so what you're telling me is there's, what do we have? It's like 20, 30-year-old zombies that have been voting for Trump? That's what you're telling me?
I think so. The arm of Possad is very
Oh,
long.
no. Is that a link from the
No.
Russians
Dude,
to the
possible.
elections?
I guess it would be 30 or older, right?
60s.
Yeah.
They're old.
I mean, he died in the 80s.
It's enough time for a citizen, you know.
Yeah,
for
Oh,
the-
man. Dude, that's crazy.
Okay, let's circle back to the actual question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So back to...
In reality,
I guess all I'm saying is, like, if automation goes so fucking crazy,
advanced AI.
we might need some sort of, like, over-encompassing government like that kind of, like, regulates all the automation and, like, manufacturing and everything.
Well, I mean, it
Maybe.
doesn't necessarily
As
have
it
I don't know.
pertains to...
Like, society, because, you know, who knows, maybe, like, employment will only be, like, 25%. Maybe we only need that much and everything else can be automated.
Well, this
Then what? We'd all be fucked. And those 25 companies, well, not like, you know,
But
as an
25%.
example, like those 25 companies would have all the money.
Yeah.
So instead of that and having them, like, you know, do whatever they might do, we could have like some sort of elected or something.
Yeah. I mean,
Something different.
America?
I don't know.
it's gotta, you know, I'd like some ideas from America in terms of keeping the government in check, because historically, when it comes to communism, having it be just one government entity with no checks and balances associated with them is what, you know,
Yeah, that
As-
tends to be bad.
it tends to be bad, and
Yeah.
it tends to, you know, cause things like Russia and China currently, who's
Yeah.
what cracked down on the letter N.
I hope it
something like
never
that.
happens. I
Well,
don't think I'm ready to throw out the potential value it may have for the.
Oh no. I'm not saying throw it out. I'm just talking about in terms of
complete.
trying to get communism to work.
Oh, it would have
You
to
know,
be like extreme
because
circumstances.
It would have to be extreme circumstances.
I
But
feel like communism would only work if there were no need for people to work.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Like
No, that's
a very small need for people to work. Like socialism might work, but communism
no.
also.
Well, socialism, you're just like, this is the line between capitalism and communism.
Socialism, you're standing
is like,
between it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Socialism.
You're here and you're
That's
like
what
you're
I'm
about to
saying,
tilt
like,
over on
that
communism.
compromise might be made there,
Yeah.
and that might work. But I just think like if we have to facilitate like mass universal income and have that be these people's only income because they can't get jobs, companies still have to exist because people still have to buy things. So yeah, they took their jobs. So who knows? Maybe it's impossible for the economy to ever get to that point because they still
Yeah.
need to pay people to pay the other companies and themselves.
Yeah,
So-
and plus, like, if communism, everybody has the same thing, there's no drive to do anything.
well,
well, like
because
what
when
would
I
they
read
do?
the
Like they can't work,
Well, yeah.
so
I
you
mean,
can't put like a profession in front
Yeah,
of
so
them.
that's what I mean. Like, at that point, that's why I would say it needs to be at that point because we don't
Yeah.
have to work. We can just. But
Exactly, and that's why that
I
was
mean,
the
I-
example I used because I can't think of like a
like, wouldn't
realistic.
you just feel as people unnecessary at all? Like, you can just fulfill your pleasures all the time, and then that just gets boring.
well,
Yeah.
that's the thing is that in capital, as well as
Capital.
yeah, das Kapital. Labor is the reason for communism. It's not like people are just going to be lazy and doing nothing. Like if you actually read Capital, like it's all about labor, the material relations between people.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not the fact that, you know, it's just so we don't have work. It's so that we do indeed have work. So we do have a purpose, a material purpose, not, you know, it's not going to be a spiritual.
Yeah, so everybody has a job.
But it's like there
is
is going to be a reason for people to be around. It's not like we're just going to
Okay.
have like the bourgeoisie.
You gotta have a job to get enough money to be able to reach whatever goal you're looking for, whether it be like another, like getting a bigger house or moving out,
Yeah.
or
well, everybody
you know,
would make
getting
the same.
your own vehicle, you know.
Yeah, but like, if only 25% of people actually have jobs or
Yeah.
are able to get jobs,
Yeah.
What is
Like,
the
that wouldn't
75%
be-
going to do, first of all?
exactly. But like, since you're saying communism would be about like the work, perhaps it would be the government, instead of having people, you know, produce value for companies and things like that, perhaps they would provide the universal income based on more abstract value, like, you know, artists, writers, things like that.
But
Maybe
are they
that's what
rewarded
it-
more for their efforts?
Well, it's, you know,
Is
because
it-
I don't want to be that guy. Well, you know, that technically, but again, like in like Marx's communism, because there's other types of communism. In that one, technically, what he's calling for is a stateless, moneyless society. That's still, you know, developed on labor, and obviously that's a little weird. And if you think about it, that's never technically existed, which is, you know,
No,
still a
it's-
terrible argument for
That kind
communism.
of stuff has existed, but moneyless and stateless is like well before civilized
Yeah,
society.
that's true.
Is what they're
Well,
presuming.
That's more of a
moneyless
bargaining.
societies have
Because if you're
have
going,
existed. You
if
know,
you're going-
like surviving on a barter system.
They're just inefficient.
Yeah.
It's just hella inefficient.
that's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but it's just the problem is like how do you value one labor over another? Like just between right now.
Yeah, no, and I see that.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the hard thing.
that kind of stuff would be subjective from person to person,
Yeah.
as it pertains to bartering, you know, the value of a couple fish versus, you know, somebody else's idea of what a couple fish is worth, you know, in terms of like trading food for goods and stuff you need,
Yeah.
you know, and dishing out the jobs, who's going to be doing what, to be able to keep up, you know, your theoretical moneyless and,
Right.
you know, stateless society. You know, it's got to be like a group community effort.
Yeah. Communal. Community.
You know, yeah.
Communist.
You know,
Community.
but
Triggers.
you know, if you're gonna have, that's kind of the problem with trying to integrate it into modern day society.
Oh, yeah,
because
especially.
everybody else has a set price. You know, set price for labor and everything else. Every day they got all that stuff mapped out. And what are you gonna do when it comes to trying to barter something that has a fixed price?
Yeah.
And then, like, say you live in a village that doesn't have somebody providing a service that you need to live or survive. Where are you going to go then?
Exactly. You know,
I mean, I one solution I came up with was a general state established type distributor that, like, you give in your goods or what you have provided, and then you can get just like a base value type thing that you need to survive, but for other people that you can barter as much as you want to get
Yeah,
higher
so, like-
quality goods.
Like, everyone turns in everything they get, but everyone receives the same, like, bread and then milk
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then whatever.
Or if somebody is like producing that themselves, you can barter with them personally and try to get a higher quality good or something like that. I'm not sure.
So then
Of course
people who
it's-
produce more would, in turn, have more value.
and then that's where you get to the
That- and then
distribution,
suddenly
and then it
it's
spirals up, and then
capitalism and-
there's a whole bunch of poverty and then a lot of people on top, and that's just why.
And then all the people
it's
get on
unstable.
top, and then it crashes back down, and then communism comes up. And
Yeah,
then it all,
and then
Trotsky was
capitalism
right. Eternal revolution.
It's tough. It's definitely a tough subject.
yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think that at least in this time or anywhere in the near future, it's just viable at all right now.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I'm just answering the question. I don't think.
not with the
I
majority.
mean, obviously, I
of-
don't. Like, it's
Yeah.
not destined to lead to the deaths of tens of millions, but I definitely think it's.
I don't think it's the best.
Yeah, it's definitely.
It's
the best. I'm
definitely,
not saying
like,
capitalism
one
is
of
the
the
best,
worst
but
mean,
by
we're-
far.
We're talking about in theory, right?
Yeah.
well,
in
yeah. I
theory?
mean, like in
Okay.
theory, it's obviously
No,
the best
I'm
thing in
trying
the
to find a
world.
better way to, like, command my base in Warcraft 3.
Everybody gets the same. All peons get the same shit.
Okay, all right.
It's just tough. Yeah, no, I just don't
Okay.
think it.
So Connor, what did you learn about postmodernism?
Should we start with modernism and then go to postmodernism?
I didn't. I
Probably.
forgot about the modernism
That's
caveat. I just
If you want to talk
watched a
about
couple
postmodernism.
videos.
I'll probably
I mean,
just
the
read
whole
off the
point-
Wikipedia.
The whole point of postmodernism is to be the counterculture to modernism, as I understand it. Now,
Well,
the
I mean,
details
it's like
of both.
it's postmodernism is like an evolution from that.
Yeah,
But
It's meant to be reflective of
it's
modernism.
supposed to be
in
in
relation
contrast
to,
of each other,
Yeah, well,
not just.
I think one thing you have to define is exactly where it started.
Yeah, there was
And
just.
I think
I'd
a lot
like.
of
I don't think you
people-
can do that.
which is-
Like,
Well,
it's
no,
just,
like
it
the
ranges
idea
too
really
much.
came, and like some people say when the atom bombs dropped.
Yeah.
But a lot of people say in the '60s, and what I've come to
Derrida.
believe is Jacques Derrida. That's kind of what I had come to the conclusion of, that he really brought it into the mainstream. I think that's what I mean. Not like where exactly it started, like which person first thought of the idea, but when it like actually became a mainstream, I guess, viability in terms of social construct.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Did
about
you
it.
look at modernism?
I mean, that's the thing, and the reason why I wanted to point it out is because there are a lot of people that say that modernism never ended technically, and that postmodernism
don't-
is just like it's just a term for the extension of modernism. Because if you look up modernism, the definition looks similar to postmodernism because it's about experimenting from breaking the mold and is in contrast to tradition like Romanticism, like Enlightenment thinking, Renaissance and whatnot,
Yeah.
and like it also has like a sort of nihilist prelude, like a sort of mentality, I guess. So
I feel like postmodernism is just an extension of those ideas in a way that it's like those ideas on steroids, or
yeah,
just
because it's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
exactly the same.
I don't think
it's
they're
like not
mutually
exactly the
exclusive
same,
at all.
obviously.
They're not.
Yeah,
They're responses to each other.
basically.
At least in terms.
That's more accurate to say, I think.
In terms of, I guess what I'm most familiar with is art. It's supposed to be, kind of like I wouldn't call it a war, but it's supposed to be a response. Postmodernism is a response to modernism,
Mm-hmm.
which has lasted a long time, and then,
Whatever comes after will.
postmodernism is supposed to be a response to postmodernism.
Yeah.
In that sense, so you kind of can't have
well, I
the
think
first two without talking about modernism and then seeing as to why it even came into fruition.
yeah, so that's
you know.
why I was trying to define exactly when.
Yeah, so it would probably help.
I think the
knew
idea
exactly when.
of having postmodernism came around the Second World War, but it was more or less actually defined and given, a serious meaning by, not only Jacques Derrida, but
Foucault.
yeah, and somebody else. Can't remember. There's somebody.
Jordan
somebody
Peterson.
else. No.
Were they French?
Yeah. There's French philosophers. Somebody else. I can't remember. There's a third one.
Arnaldo?
Might be. I've heard that name too. What is the question? What is it, or
Yeah,
No, it's just a topic.
what topic?
Like, we're just kind of going over it.
What do you think of postmodernism?
There's definitely some merit to a little bit of it.
Yeah, for
But-
sure. There's like,
It just falls apart under scrutiny.
yeah, for sure. I don't like the idea of infinite interpretations is obviously something that's true. Like, you can interpret anything infinite number of ways, but there are a finite set of interpretations that are viable and that work within the world,
Yeah.
Like, you can... I was watching a video earlier of Jordan Peterson.
I watched this.
I mean, I had watched some other stuff too, but I was
Yeah.
getting a freshen up before
Yeah.
we came in here.
It's like the exact same thing.
Yeah. But he was talking about people like deriving interpretation from, say, like a Shakespeare play, and some people could derive that they should kill their family and themselves.
Yeah.
But that's not a viable interpretation because you can't enact that every day. Like once you actually go through with that, you can't continue to do it because you're dead. And people would refute against that and say that just doesn't work. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, the idea of infinite interpretations is real, but you can't just say, oh, I can interpret anything any way I want and it'll work.
Well, I mean, isn't it the whole concept of postmodernism? Because there's a certain style that comes with modernism, and it's usually more, you know, structured and how do I put it? I don't know. Everything's more grounded in reality when it comes to modernism.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to the paintings, you see like big paintings of, you know, just mausoleums, churches, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas postmodernism is kind of a response to that, saying, why is it got to be exactly like that? Why can't it be this apple on a white box?
Yeah.
Well,
You know,
yeah,
why
it
is
was
this not art? And basically trying to criticize it for having, you know, orders and parameters as to what art,
Yeah.
quote unquote, is.
Yeah.
It was a breakout for Michelle. I think Andy Warhol was characterized as one of the people who really brought on postmodernism in an art sense in terms of like paintings and whatnot, just because he went so abstract, like
Yeah.
what fucking tomato cans and all different colors and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that was pretty different from what they did then, and that obviously was a welcome change. I mean, the 1960s around there. I don't know. Do you know when Warhol was around?
Yeah, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
I think maybe late 50s and 60s.
Yeah, I'm
That
guessing
seemed
around
right.
that era, but it was also around the point of like spiritual enlightenment because of, you know, psychedelics and drugs and all that stuff, and it was just breaking out of the norm and
Breaking the boundaries.
yeah. But obviously,
sure.
after a certain point, there's some boundaries that, you know, need to be there for society to like function normally,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
for everybody to be able to express their own interpretation. And that's what I read in the thing, is that there's no negotiation. It was a lot of identity politics in terms
Yeah.
of postmodernism, and it's, you have your group and I have my group, but there's no way in
There's no individuals,
Yeah,
it's just
well,
groups.
there's that, but there's no stepping out of those groups,
Yeah.
negotiating and coming up with some type of deal between those.
Yeah.
There's no negotiation.
Yeah, because
between
there's
people.
no individuals. Like you're always
Yeah.
an extension of your group.
Yeah, there's no
Like,
dialogue
yeah.
between people, and
Would
that's a
you-
problem.
Would you say it was more like more tribalistic
Oh yeah,
in a
definitely.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where-
absolutely.
It feels like a
that's been
step
defined that way, too.
backwards
Yeah.
with the definition that we're working with now.
Yeah, no,
for
but
sure.
they've been calling it like not everybody, but on like the Joe Rogan podcast, they had acknowledged that it's kind of like tribalistic. It's like you're in your tribe and we're in our tribe, and
the tribes don't
you
mingle.
know, yeah, like the right. Well, kind of. They're saying that it doesn't, but obviously you can. You can commit to like an idea within a group, but you can like also come out of that group and negotiate
Yeah.
with people, so you know civilizations can form.
Hegelian dialectics, dude.
What?
I don't know, just some other philosophy term.
Hegelian.
Hegelian
Dialectics.
dialectics, dude.
But yeah, it's very much a group mentality where either you're part of the group or you're
Yeah, I mean,
shit out of luck.
it's either you agree with exactly what they're saying or you're absolutely against them.
That's what I hate about the
Like-
party system.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously
it's
there
very-
should be two or more sides for sure, just to see like you see the opposite or like what's wrong with certain ideas, and you can talk, and
Yeah.
that's why the right would push back so hard against the left, is because you know the left's like, oh, it has to be exactly what we want, and it has to be
Yeah.
what we're exactly laying out, and they're like, well, if you're gonna play it that way, we're gonna play it that way as well, and we're not gonna lose. And we're
I think
gonna-
they're both like just doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
don't
the
think,
right
like,
has kind of been
it's-
doing that before.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess both sides have been doing that for a while.
The left is just the one that's doing it right now.
Yeah, and
They've been
It's the
doing
one
it
that-
they're very prominent, and they're kind of like explicitly expressing that with this mentality of postmodernism. Like it's actually like written, not written, but in terms of
It's clear.
yeah, it's very clear as day.
Yeah.
So-
But I mean, with that, it kind of strips away the nuance of the problems that they're disputing over, for sure.
It does, I think.
Yeah, and they say
You
that
know,
the left side has stopped representing the working class. Like they've just
liberals have.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like the far left side has stopped representing working people.
Yeah, but I don't know. It kind of feels like a generalization. I feel like
that's why I say like far left. Like obviously Democrats,
Yeah.
I feel like they are still doing that in a sense. But
No, I would probably argue.
If we're talking about the fringe left, then yeah, they don't care anymore. They just care about themselves at this point.
Which is weird. Like, it's weird to think about, because it's weird to think about, like, all the different ways that everyone sees society and how they relate that to how they think the government should be.
yeah.
Like, it's kind of crazy.
It is, yeah.
Like, how are we all supposed to come on, like, a uniform decision? Like, I know we're not supposed to, but, like,
Yeah,
how are we even supposed to coagulate all our wildly varying ideas?
Well, see, that's why
You don't.
it's always like a push back and forth. Like the right side will get a little bit more, and then the left side will get a little bit more. But I
Yeah.
think the only times there are 4 times, or 4 certain circumstances that cause both sides to kind of like communicate on one idea is usually like epidemics, like mass tragedies, like shootings and stuff and whatnot. Obviously, the right side's like pushing back against gun reform.
Yeah.
But like 9/11.
Yeah, 9/11, like
You
big
got support from both
tragedies,
sides.
stuff like that.
I mean,
Natural disasters, they come together and they do.
Yeah.
They see, not obviously not all of them, but a bigger majority of both kind of come together and
yeah,
at least try to respond in some positive way.
yeah. I mean, I'd say for our society at the moment, in terms of, you know, like you said, those kinds of disasters are meant to, or are like one of the only ways at the moment that we can actually like come together as a people.
I mean, it's not the only
Yeah.
way, but that seems
It's-
like
it's
the
the biggest
biggest way, or
The common enemy
the few
approach.
ways that,
Yeah.
that bring a lot more people together than other things.
Enough to actually matter.
Yeah,
Like,
and actually
Well, it
like
seems-
conform on some type of decision.
It seems, especially with the shootings, that even that now can't bring us together because people are still sticking to their guns, so to speak.
Well, I think it's a
Um,
unique thing because we're desensitized to it, unlike other
Yeah.
countries. Because
Yeah,
I think
it's
if you got
crazy.
another country that did have a school shooting that's not, or just any kind of mass shooting that's
Yeah.
not used to that sort of thing, there would be, I think, more unity. Not perfect, obviously.
Yeah, there's
But-
never going to be full unity, but if the majority can come together and
Yeah.
And plus, it's seeing like where that idea of gun reform is also implemented. Like it's implemented in European countries, and their gun violence has gone down a lot, like
Yeah.
extremely. So I mean, obviously, there's no way to abolish it. You can't just make something illegal, and nobody's ever going to do it. Like,
Right.
Like alcohol,
Well,
or like saying you
alcohol
can't kill
just
people.
fucking backfires.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if
Prohibition.
you say you can't kill people, which is like a vast majority accepted and like agreed upon, like there's still people that are going to do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what you do on anything, there's always going to be some people that want to, keep doing it, whether it's illegal or not. However, as it pertains to the majority, for gun reform, everybody uses the example of Australia, of course, because that's like the most famous one.
Right.
But not, people still have guns over there.
That's true.
Yeah, well, they're not.
That's the thing that people don't like to talk, especially liberals don't like to talk about, is that there are actually guns still in Australia.
Right.
Well, yeah.
A lot
Well,
of them-
the thing is, they're not talking about taking away guns. Like, obviously, they're talking about taking away a certain type of gun, which is like assault
Yeah.
rifles, which is fully automatic that can
Well, I mean,
kill like tens of. I wouldn't say hundreds because obviously there aren't that many bullets in a gun, but upwards
Lots
of
of
50
like
people.
perfectly lined up collaterals.
Yeah,
I
but
might be able to.
Yeah, I mean, but that that's the thing. We don't all need to have automatic assault rifles. And
none
I
of us need to.
I can
yeah.
understand the pushback for it, and it seems like people are trying to take away your guns, and they're trying to
Well,
unarm you so they can take you over. Like, I understand the conspiracy theory part of that, but
yeah, I mean, that's the result of the right, especially attacking an idea rather than a problem. They're attacking they're pushing back against the idea of guns being taken away without actually taking into the reality that people don't want to take away all of the guns. They just want to
there's
take away
like
the
a
guns.
very specific type of thing. Like, we
They
put
want it-
stipulations on
They want to take away.
driving, on drinking and stuff, because it actually does help. And
Yeah.
just this way, they want, I have to keep my automatic assault rifles. in my house. Like people, I'm sure you can still go to like gun ranges and shoot those guns. You know,
Yeah.
but
I think they have
like,
machine gun.
yeah,
like,
I
at
mean, you
certain-
can use like light machine guns, rocket launchers. You can pretty much, as long as you have like permit and you're
Yeah, but
Range.
trained to do it.
I still think the most realistic thing like that will actually help is just like changing like who can get guns.
And that's
Like,
exactly what,
specifically like age. Like
that's exactly what they're
you
trying
can
to go
buy
for
guns
in
like
terms of-
too young.
that's what
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
trying
like,
to do now.
it's like right at 18. You can buy a shotgun before you can buy a pistol.
Yep.
You might be able
It's
to
insane.
buy it earlier if you go to a gun show or just any
Yeah,
of those
stuff like that, but what-
unregulated
Yeah,
events.
the type of the reform they're going for is like an actual background check because they don't really look. I mean, there are some things that are implemented. You can't just walk in, grab a gun, and walk out. But you know, you have to. They're just trying to increase the measures
They're trying to
in
make
which
it.
you can go get it. Like they're not trying to revoke your right to get it. It's just if you're not qualified to get it.
Yeah, but that's
Obviously, what qualifications, or I guess what standards there are that need to be set are something that should definitely be talked about, and people should sit down and have an adult conversation about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people, are, like I said, are reacting to ideas rather than the situation as you look at it in reality.
The
You know?
abstract, not the material.
Yeah, exactly. They're attacking the abstract idea of guns being taken away and extrapolating that to every gun they own.
Yeah, and I can
And that's-
understand that too. It's like, at what point will it end? You
Yeah,
know?
which is
Well,
you know,
they're using that, but they need to, you know, most people are just talking about getting rid of the guns that are designed to kill many, many people.
yeah, but like their argument is like
You know.
if they have a gun to protect themselves, then that is the most efficient one to have, and that is probably that will give you one of the best chances to defend yourself if it were to come to that. And that's what they're saying.
Yeah,
You know, they're saying like if you disarm that from us, and then you come in with an army with those weapons, then that's like one of the examples that they have as to what they're afraid of. They're
Yeah,
like, you could then take over if we get invaded, or like the government wants to like fucking
Well,
take over.
Yeah, the idea is they want to have these guns in case the government decides they want to just take over.
Yeah.
And realistically, even if they had those guns, guess what? The government have missiles.
Yeah, they
Drone
have
strikes.
much more,
They have
like,
drone
advanced
strikes. They can.
warfare weaponry.
They have snipers, highly trained snipers. They can outgun you in any way, shape, or form. You having an AR-15 is not going to help against the military.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just speaking to, you know, those people that think
Yeah.
that, you know, them holding an AR-15 or whatever other kind of automatic assault rifle is actually going to help them if
Yeah.
the government decided to take over right this second.
I do think it's more than the government, though. I do think it's also like if a group of invaders came into your home, if you
Or
have like a
yeah.
semi-automatic rifle, you might not be able to defend yourself or your family.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what type of group is just gonna walk into one home?
I don't think that's the point.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
it's a
It's
very small
possibility.
probability,
Yeah.
but if it is,
It's-
it's absolutely a possibility, and that's what they're trying to defend.
it's the same thing. Like
I
we get
understand
flu
that.
shots, so we lower our chances.
Yeah, but you, like
Like a
you
lot.
know, people say like vaccines cause like autism and stuff like that. And when,
That's just.
I think
Yeah, but
there
that was
is
never
some
proven
validity to that, but it's
scientifically.
just such a small.
No,
margin.
there was none.
Yeah, well, I'm sure, like, but
Wasn't it just completely debunked?
That one
Yeah,
study,
I'm
yeah.
not sure exactly.
But-
which
Yeah,
one it is.
with guns, they can say if someone's in my house and I have a gun, I have the ability to protect myself.
Mhm.
And
You know,
can do
like
that
that's just a fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people's houses get broken in too, which is also a fact.
Yeah, but I mean, like, even police officers aren't armed with that. They're armed with handguns or shotguns. They're not armed with assault rifles.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but they would also have like backup and like.
well,
you
yeah,
know,
for sure.
They
but,
call them the SWAT if something,
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
serious.
you know.
yeah,
but
if that would be necessary, then they bring in those guns.
Yeah, but
The
your,
big guns.
But your standard police officer is now walking around with an assault rifle, whereas, you know, citizens who are afraid of having their guns taken away are clinging to automatic assault rifles. Like, they could outgun a policeman.
Yeah.
Just your ordinary citizen could, some white guy with a machine gun could just roll in and, you know, blow away like 3 or 4 cops just right off the street.
Yeah, but
You know,
like.
it's about having a balance of power in the sense that, you know, the police should be the ones taking care of us, we should be able to be arming ourselves about as minimally as possible. I would say, you know, like any sort of pistol would do just well. You don't need a shotgun to shoot someone in your hallway.
Yeah, but like,
You know.
if you have a few people coming
Well,
at
yeah.
you in your house, and then like behind you, there's another like few people fucking with your family.
Now, how often is that?
Yeah.
gonna happen?
Okay. So like you really think
like,
that
we're
that
like-
one
we're
person is gonna save the day every single time just because he has an assault rifle?
No, it increases the chances.
It's
Yeah, but I
it's
think-
provenly not going to help. One lone hero is not going to stop the school shooting.
I mean, it absolutely
on-
can, but
Like the other thing though is that you kind of have to think about the either the I guess I was gonna say the shooter, but like two shooters obviously, but the one who's on the good side.
Yeah.
If they aren't trained extensively, it's not like you're just going to be a perfect shot just by going to the range a few times. I think
Yeah, which is
there's
why
like a
the
statistic
automatic-
that's true.
Yeah, it's
There's like
not-
a statistic that like the NYPD only has a 18% accuracy rate. So
Yeah,
it's just
they're
like
not even trained
right.
enough to get their accuracy up well enough to be.
well, yeah,
properly
but it's
defending
also
gunfights.
like
Right.
situations. You know what I mean? They're,
Yeah, that's
they're
true.
they're not sitting way back and they're just watching people come
Yeah,
by.
it's
They're
usually
very
close
up close
range. Yeah.
within
Yeah.
50 feet of people.
Well, that's the thing is
So-
that they have some training.
Yeah,
Now
for
you have
sure.
your regular Joe who well, obviously they have some training, but it's like
It's not enough
Yeah.
to be able to roll in and not accidentally like miss and hit someone else. You know, you're gonna have highly trained people
Yeah, I think
that
you just,
that if the situation need be.
Are we talking about school shootings right now?
just
Yeah.
any shooting really.
Just
But
any
school
Yeah, I
shootings,
mean, I'm pretty sure like the general consensus is
Yeah.
like you wait for the police. Like I even think like the gun, like whatever.
NRA.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, just whoever.
Not
Like the guy
like
that just has the gun.
proponent people.
people love, those gun people like to talk about the theoretical, and then make that the reality. But
Well, yeah,
The
of course we
reality
have to
is-
talk in the theoretical because we're not in
Right.
all those
yeah,
situations
but
right now.
you know, you see, like you just talk about the shooting in Florida. Like they had a police deputy out there,
Didn't do anything. so
armed,
resigned.
and he couldn't do anything because he was
Scared.
fucking scared because he's never actually been in a situation like that before. Like
That's
actual.
another
Well, yeah, but I mean that's also with the army
Act-
too. Like, there's no way to put in an actual situations until they're
That's
it's
what
actually
yeah,
happening.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. You know, not even the police are prepared for an actual situation, let alone a citizen who has, you know, who's
probably never even been in that
more,
combat, yeah.
more equipped than the police.
Well, I think at that point it's like,
You know,
free for all
Yeah.
sort of thing.
you know.
Well,
in,
like-
in the end, it comes down to a free for all, ultimately. But
well, I think the police would call backup, and they'll always have a bigger gun. Always.
Yeah.
yeah, they call on the SWAT. They'll have bigger guns. But when it comes down to just your standard police officer driving down the road, and he happens to pull up next to Parkland
Right.
and starts with that school, he's got nothing but a pistol.
Mhm.
Max, maybe a shotgun in the back if he's one.
Yeah,
of
but
those.
like he wouldn't
the
be
time-
expected to do anything
That's
at
what
that
I'm
school.
saying. You know,
And then
It's-
times the element though.
So you're saying that like if he was, you know, if he had more firepower relative to that guy, not saying he should have
Yeah.
a gun, but saying that, you know, the
If he
school
was-
shooter should not have that powerful of a gun.
Yeah, he
So a
should-
common police officer could
That's
handle
what I'm
any
saying.
situation.
The power structure should be set in such a way that the police can actually take care of things when they arise. The people should not be more armed than the people who are supposed to be taking care of problems like that.
What about corruptions in the police?
That might be
what
a
if,
different
What
problem.
if the police are like the only people who have, you know, firepower like that?
Well, I mean
Like-
that's not the case. So that's
I'm
something
saying
that's not-
like,
that's something.
Would you
that's
want to change the
not-
topic to that? I mean, we could probably.
No,
I think we might be
no,
at a
I'm-
consensus right now about gun
Yeah,
control. I think
I'm
we just-
I would like to change the topic to after what Miles has to
Yeah,
say.
no, it's just, you know, that's kind of the problem with some right-wing people. They like to throw theoreticals as their arguments when we need to be talking about in reality what's happened, evidence-based.
Oh,
shit's happened
I
before.
agree fucking completely.
Yeah, when they throw out theoreticals, you know, in defense of guns, saying like, "What if this situation arises?" And I would say, it doesn't matter. We're talking about, you know, call and responses to what's actually happened in real life. So, you know, the response to the Parkland shooting should be, you know, people, you know, companies and stuff like that upping their, you know, age restrictions, which they are right now. You know, like Dick's and Walmart. up the
Raised.
age restriction to 21.
Yeah.
And they completely just stopped selling like assault rifles. I think Walmart did. So that's like an actual adult, legitimate response to an actual tragedy that happened. Not talking in theoreticals, just doing a simple, common sense
Right.
Yeah.
response to a tragedy.
Yeah.
And that's what sane people want to do. But
Well, I mean, they're
you
also
know.
sane on the other side.
I mean,
you
it's
gotta
okay for
understand
them-
that their side as well.
I understand their side, but if they're gonna argue about it, they can't be throwing just hypotheticals. They
Well, I
need
mean,
to-
it's
Well, I think that's the whole point of it.
Yeah,
like
well,
something
you're-
for defense is entirely reliant on what could happen.
yeah,
Right.
it's all
versus-
about preparing for something that could happen. Not
I mean, that's
you can't
fine.
react to something afterwards.
That's fine in moderation, but your whole argument can't be based around a hypothetical. It's got to be somewhat based in the facts of what has already happened
Well, I believe.
and what is.
Oh man, I don't remember. But I remember in relation to gun-related crimes, to gun owners who use their gun in self-defense,
Mhm.
I think it was like a 95 to 13 ratio, somewhere in there. It was like the 90s.
Uh-huh.
I got in a Facebook argument, so
Oh no.
yeah. So I was trying to pull out facts, like, because he was saying like, oh, you know, like I need my guns because I need to protect myself, and I was saying like,
Cool.
the ratio there of gun-related violence and actually protecting yourself with a gun is fucking way off.
Yeah.
It's way fucking off. There
Yeah.
needs to be some sort of change, like in
There
my
does.
opinion,
Yeah.
to prevent that.
Yeah.
But I think the fact like that 13 like is even there says that like a lot of people are using their guns in self-defense. Like it does happen.
Yeah.
And because it does happen, that is looking at past statistics and things, and they're saying, hey, I want to be a part of that group of people,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to commit any crimes, so I should have a gun because I can not be the negative side of the statistic, and I can only be the positive side of the statistic, which is fundamentally wrong,
It
but a
is.
lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
And while that thought logic is fundamentally wrong, I wouldn't doubt if it was statistically correct. You know, like most gun owners don't commit gun-related crimes.
Yeah. No,
So I think that's the argument there is like,
Yeah, I think that's
you
the
know,
argument.
Yeah, I can have a gun and I will only protect myself with it.
Yeah.
But it's just sometimes that doesn't happen, and then you also have the
It's-
groups who use that accessibility to use it for negative
Yeah,
reasons.
it's the less than 1% of those gun owners that actually do real harm.
Yeah, and it's a lot of damage. So
It does
it's,
a lot of damage.
relatively, it's very important. So,
So that's why it's an issue that does need to be
addressed for
addressed.
sure.
It does need
Exactly.
to be addressed
Exactly.
in some way.
Yeah.
Because
That's how I feel.
it doesn't matter if the majority don't do anything. It's the very few that do massive damage with
Yeah.
weapons they should not be holding.
yeah.
You know.
It's definitely it's a tough.
It is. It is. I always try to like get my best grasp of both, and I have friends on like the far sides of both, like sides of that.
Yeah.
I'm still not like entirely sure, but I definitely feel like there needs to be some sort of change.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's
Absolutely.
It's not good
it's
the way
starting.
it
It's
is.
starting to happen.
Like,
At least something's happening.
Even
Yeah.
if it's not taking away assault rifles, at least put up some more barriers between.
I
getting
think
these
if we
guns.
just make restrictions over time, like less people will be able to acquire the guns, or the guns will slowly like, you know, break, and maybe we need to put restrictions on repairing them, and then over
Yeah.
time they would get like overly expensive, so the people who want them or would eventually, hopefully, mostly just be collectors and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So it would be setting up like future generations, because right now, like taking them, would have to reimburse people. It'd be fucking ridiculous amount of money the government would have to like fork into that
It'd
program.
be too much.
If they took,
I
it'd be
mean,
way
if-
too much.
I mean, if they can just keep upping keep printing money for pointless wars, I'm pretty sure they could spend a little bit like. a little
No,
bit of
it would
cash
it would
moolah.
it would be like 100 times the yearly national budget for defense.
Well, that would be going for a good
It's
cause.
it's
then.
in the trillions of
It's-
what they would
it's-
have to do.
That, I mean,
It would be surprising though. There's
Yeah.
there's like I think there's a gun for every person in America, like every citizen, because there's 300 million. And
but in reality, all those guns are
Hoarded
hoarded up by like, I don't remember the statistics.
Yeah, but, like-
it's under like a quarter
Yeah.
of the
The
population.
point is, guns, like fucking tiny amount of guns are under like $200. Most of them are fucking hundreds of dollars. Some of them are thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And you would have to reimburse all these people.
Yeah. In a perfect world, reimbursing everybody would be the ideal world.
What happened? Yeah,
Would
it's
be-
just like the fact that like it's just
Like you
it's
paid,
not feasible.
You paid $500 for this gun or whatever it is. You're $500 back. We're gonna take it.
Yeah.
And all your ammo. Go ahead.
The only thing that I ever thought of that I think might work would be like a staggering of it, and instead of just paying them, you give them bonds. People would still get pissed, but it'd be much easier for the government to do, and then over, you know, maybe 50 years, then like it would drastically take like a lot of the guns out of the market. People would be getting their money back.
Yep.
Obviously, it's far from ideal, and
It's an idea.
Well, I
it's
mean,
yeah.
It's an idea.
look, in the grand scheme of societies, an idea that's kind of okay is probably the best solution.
I don't know.
You
I'm
know?
still not like, I don't think that is the answer still. I'm not sure,
It's-
obviously.
It's an answer at least.
Ultimately-
It's just the one thing that I thought of that if we went that route, I feel like that's the best way to do it, but I'm still not sure if that's the route to go.
Now,
You're having a dialogue.
here's
wrap that
exactly.
back around.
We're having a conversation.
Yeah, we're
So,
actually having a
postmodernism.
conversation.
Here's
And wrap that back
What you
around.
got?
Here's a thought on the wrap up. How about people get to keep their guns, but they're kept in an armory?
Oh, like a
A
local
public-
armory,
a
and you have to
pub-
go check your guns out.
Public armory, and you have to go check your
I didn't
guns
even think
out,
about that.
and you have to state what you're going to do and where you're
Well,
going
I
to
mean,
go.
I don't
I
even
don't
think
think
you would
that
need
would-
to like state, but
Might not be
it's an
feasible.
interest.
I don't think people would.
I
you
think-
know, the point is having it on hand to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
So
point.
you're not gonna get something.
I'm
you're
not
not gonna
saying-
get broken into and then be like,
That's
I
a
mean,
good point.
okay,
Like, there's
let
no
me go back
use
to
for
the-
those assault guns. Like,
They,
there's-
yeah, exactly. They can keep.
Can you wait right there? Let me go to the army. Let me grab my gun. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
They
you
can. They
stand
can
up.
keep
I got some
their.
pizza in the
They
kitchen
can
for
keep
you.
their pistols, and they can keep. I'd even give them their shotguns.
Well,
Because
well,
nobody's really
yeah.
done.
Let me
too much.
rephrase. Like,
Yeah.
there's no, what did I say? There's no use. There's no active use for them. There's a defensive use for them, and that
Yeah.
is inherently their use.
Yeah.
At least for the people that want them for the right reasons.
Yeah. That's.
But
You know, that's the idea of it, but how often they use it, you know, if you want to use it. Like, what do they do other than self-defense? What's the point of having it? Is that the only reason?
well, I think it's the peace of mind and the knowledge that if you needed to use it in self-defense, you could. Like, at the end of the day, the reality is most people don't come into a situation where they would need to use their gun, which
Yeah.
is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good thing.
No, it's, I'm not saying it's. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just asking what situations. Are they
Okay.
used for other
Like,
than
I'm
that?
pretty sure the argument
yeah,
is
that's
like
the
home
only thing.
invaders.
It's defense.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's the point of the gun. I
And
mean,
like
some
those things
people-
do happen,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
as resided in
okay.
the fact that, you know, all those people were using them in self-defense
Yeah.
through the statistics. I think that was 2014 statistics. So it's not like now, but it's still fairly
It's
recent.
fairly recent.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the past 4 years.
All right.
But yeah,
Yeah, so
I would like to pose a question if we still have time. How long has
Sure.
this been going on?
We got for a question.
45
Okay.
minutes. You got
All right.
it.
So I want to talk. What do you guys think the psychological reasons are for why we're seeing, you know, more and more of these like school shootings? Like apart from the accessibility of guns, I just want to throw that out. Like I'm kind of
Yeah.
like we're over the guns
We're
thing.
gonna compartmentalize that.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about.
Wait, before
all
we
the other
that,
factors.
I also think we should also just add, and it's not part of the psychological, which is why I'm saying we should do it before
Okay.
the conversation. Obviously, now we have social media and more television, so obviously it's being broadcast more, and obviously that's, and I guess this what I'm going to say next is partially psychological, but that's what gets the views on TV and whatnot. And that's more marketing, if anything.
Yeah.
I think that would fall into the psychological
Yeah,
with
it's a mix.
it's a mix, but
Psychological, yeah.
I know a lot of people like to. I don't know.
It's a very negative view of humanity, so I don't really like saying that's
I mean,
the
I think
only-
it's been scientifically like proven,
But it's
Yeah,
accurate.
we've been
Bystander effect.
desensitized to a lot of violence and stuff like that, but
and like we're getting more access to it. Like
Yeah.
well, wait, what is your question? What's
Is
the
psychological reasons for that?
Well,
Seeing
not
what are-
psychological
not
particular,
specifically.
but
He's
cultural?
Just, he's just
Societal?
wondering.
Social?
No.
And
He's just
just
wondering what other reasons besides accessibility.
Oh,
why
Do
are
you
we
think
seeing
these are
more of
happening?
it? Yeah, like because I was reading a thing and someone was like, yeah, I remember seeing the Columbia thing and fucking freaking out. And then now I don't give a shit because we're all desensitized because it keeps happening or we keep learning about it.
It's not only that, but it keeps happening and nobody's doing anything about it.
Thoughts and prayers, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, why wasn't it happening before that point in time as often? Like, why is it curving up?
I'm going to throw a few ideas out. The first being the idea of American masculinity in terms of how guys behave, how guys think, how guys are raised to both, act and think. Guys generally are for the most part, taught to not show any emotions, not show any feelings.
Well, we're making some strides on that.
Be a tough guy. We are making strides, but for the majority of people who,
especially in the U.S.,
I'm just talking about the U.S. specifically.
Yeah.
We have a culture of trying to be fearless, trying to be the idyllic macho man who doesn't have to show his feelings.
Like
he's proud. He knows exactly what to do at all times, even if he's wrong.
Hypermasculinity.
Hypermasculinity. I think that's one aspect of the problem.
Do you think that's worse now than it was before?
I think so. Yeah, I think
I think there are reasons why that's worse now than it was before, and I think that's because of the left kind of demonizing the idea of masculinity as just encompassed by all men entirely. Like, they're just generalizing every man as this hyper-masculine, and it's like causing reaction for men to either fight back or we're losing the concept of like the normal man, or raising a man right.
Uberman?
Yeah, Uberman.
No, it's either you're sensitive and on the left side, and like you're a feminist and whatnot, or you're not entirely on their side and you're hyper-masculine, you're against them.
Yeah, and we're like the fucking false dichotomy fucking everywhere.
Yeah,
like, it's always
so I think it's just it's also reaction. That's definitely something that's going into.
I mean, I think partially. Do you want to finish your reasons, or can we discuss this first and then go?
Discuss this because I think that's
I think we can start right here.
I feel like that's the main one.
Oh, okay.
In terms of guys' ideas of masculinity here in America, and then them having to, because most of the media is liberal, and they're trying to push the rights of women and other people, and they're not particularly focusing on men's problems, men's rights and stuff. Men's well, I shouldn't say men's rights.
But
they're
problems.
But they're not focusing on
Jordan Peterson.
They're not focusing on men's problems.
Jordan People's
Peterson. Exactly. So
here he comes.
When it comes down to it, I feel like a lot of these school shooters who are typically guys.
Yeah. Well, if you looked at the writings of the Columbine shooters, it was just it wasn't a hyper masculine thing. It was just a very extremely nihilistic look at the world. Like,
yeah, but why did that nihilistic view come into play though?
Well, I think
nihilism comes from postmodernism
here. Yeah, it definitely. I don't think it was a reaction to like hyper masculinity or push back against that. Like what they said, it was just.
I think that's kind of reductivist because I think nihilism has always been around. I mean, Nietzsche, who was a nihilist,
I'm not saying nihilism is entirely that. It just seemed like a more extreme form of nihilism. Like, what's the point of being alive? No human should be alive, and they were trying to conduct the worst form of evil that they could possibly think of in their immediate vicinity before they ended their own lives.
I think for the Columbine shooter, that's a completely separate thing. That's an ideology going way too fucking far when it comes to the Columbine. Taking nihilism way too far and then taking action with those feelings and thoughts.
Yeah, but while it might be a little bit of an extension, like it did happen.
No, I'm not saying it didn't happen. Like that. I don't know.
I think the fact that it did happen is enough for us to be able to talk about it because I feel like
it was such a huge event too.
It was.
Yeah, and I feel like the differences in their motives and all the other motives
aren't too far off.
No, I think that there's a pretty wide variance between you know, the extremes there.
Yeah.
Extremes of what? Like reason?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we also have to look at statistics in terms of race and ethnicity of people who are doing it, and it seems to be, at least
No,
what do I
like
see, like majority white
dudes,
people.
white dudes.
Yeah, predominantly
And-
white people, and
And it's always males.
It's always
yeah,
males,
for
always
sure.
white
I
males.
haven't seen. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen for any other race
Yeah, I
or
haven't
anything, but just
seen
specifically in
it.
It can happen
America,
though.
because that's what we get. We are
At the same time, too, like, media's fucking racist. They'd
Sure.
be like, oh, black people kill themselves in a school. It's not going to be global. I don't know if that did happen, but
It
like,
might though. I
sometimes
mean, there's
wouldn't
so
be
many
surprised.
shootings and
The
just
media's
attacks on the school,
sketchy.
so I wouldn't be surprised if there are.
Yeah.
Black
Yeah,
or-
I just
Yeah, it's just that's what we see a lot of, and
I think the
also
news
it
is
depends
like-
on what exactly is reported, because some things
Yeah.
aren't, like they just don't.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, like,
news and we don't see it.
If a pretty young girl gets kidnapped, that's going to hit the news. But
Yeah.
like all the other kidnappings that happen, sometimes like
Yeah.
no one cares.
it's the idea that the media and the culture in general doesn't talk about or focus on
Jordan Peterson.
white male issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Like and if you're sitting there like let's say like one of the, because I assume I probably shouldn't assume this, but I assume that at least some of them watch Fox News and they sit there and listen to the rhetoric saying like the left hates white people and yada yada yada, and couple that with the fact that them as men don't deal with their problems because they're raised not to deal with their problems. They're meant to compartmentalize any emotional problems they have,
And
and
that's-
that's eventually going to hit a boiling point when coupled with having the media talk down to your kind.
I just
so
want
to
to
say.
clarify,
Well,
like,
that's where I would-
we're not talking about your autobiography right now, right?
I think we are.
You're not feeling this right now, are you?
Can we talk about
my problem?
well, what I would argue with that, and I'm not, I guess, kind of to be devil's advocate, but at the same time, I'm gonna be the best devil's advocate. But
Fair enough.
at least with Columbine, I don't think, because I also feel like I'm gonna be putting words in your mouth, but I don't mean to. But it's sort of like, I don't think the rise of that sort of feminism, again, like you guys didn't even say feminism, right? So that's why I'm saying, like, I'm putting
So
words in
you
your mouth,
did.
but
So we'll
There
have
you
to
go.
kick you off the podcast.
okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean-
That's a fallacy.
I mean, that's kind of what
Feminism?
I was alluding to.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
the
what I was
focus-
thinking, but it's
Yeah,
I don't want to.
the focus on everyone's issues except for
White
theirs.
males.
You
No,
know?
and I get that, but it's like, especially during the early school shootings, I don't think that was as prevalent. It was
That
obviously
was-
burgeoning, but it
Yeah.
wasn't as prevalent, and it was still happening.
I think
And
that's
I would think that maybe it's not so much a neglect of white men, but it's more of just culture in general, and like the term. And again, this is like a very I wouldn't even say problematic, but it's like problematic in a different sense, that toxic masculinity, which again goes back to how men are supposed to compartmentalize. I can't even speak,
Yeah.
but and I think that it's not even, because that's always been an American problem.
It's always been an American problem.
And
yeah.
like Western problems. Jesus, I haven't even seen that show.
Oh, I'm so excited.
But it's always been like a Western problem, and of course an American issue. So I think just blaming it on the the newest trend is just like a scapegoat in a sense.
Yeah, that's
because-
why.
Blaming on what trend?
Like just whatever, like the rise. So like postmodernism would be the sort of just a scapegoat, like all of the woes, and obviously that's not even most.
Well, yeah, no.
everybody, but
When I said it was
it is
partially
some
due to postmodernism,
partially.
I
That's the key
wasn't
word.
I wasn't saying, I didn't say partially, but
No, yeah.
I think that
You-
was
that's what you meant.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I wasn't
figured.
saying it was entirely that.
I guess I was just
it's never
clarifying.
it's never entirely one issue
Yeah.
for sure.
No, for sure. Just making sure that.
I just think that like while we've spoken about some things that may affect the mental state of like the group of people that typically commit these crimes, I'd like to focus on further in, like why do they actually do it? Like, yeah, okay, they might be stressed out and feel like trapped due to this issue, but how does that make them pick up a gun and go shoot?
Well, I would kind of tie it with.
Hold it straight.
Should we wait for them to? Or should we keep
You
going?
can talk.
All right, because like, and obviously it's not perfect and it's obviously biased, but it reminds me of like when people say that how young men today are sort of falling into right-wing nationalism and all that, in the sense that no one is addressing, and that's why I think Miles brought up that thing where no one is addressing their issues, and then the only people that are just so happen to be, and I'm just using the example of right-wing nationalism, this is obviously different, but like in that sense, people are addressing their problems, you know. Oh, it's like, oh, you know, this is why women are treating you bad, and then obviously later
they're
on
framing it in a very negative way, as if just by proxy of, you know, the liberal media talking about everybody else's issues, they frame it as if they're attacking white people, white males specifically,
and then
you know, that's just how they're framing it, and I think that kind of dichotomy and that constant barrage of nobody cares about you, these people fucking hate you, they hate, you know, what you stand for, and some extremists on the left kind of do.
They can do that too.
To some extent, but I feel like that's
and so the case
a big component of the problem.
Yeah. And in the case for school shootings, because obviously a lot of times they might not even be so politicized, but that's sort of the problem, is that they have no outlet. So if they have no outlet and they don't, I guess this might be a defense for, you know, philosophy or literature, is because there is like an outlet, so there is some sort of connection with humanity, is that they lose that connection, and then since they're angry, I mean, what does anybody do when they're angry? They get violent. And obviously, that's not always everybody's reaction, but I mean, that's just the most basic. And
that's some people, and then those some people might have guns, and those some people with guns might come to that conclusion. So I see what you're saying.
And that's you know, that's kind of what I'm alluding to, and I guess my theory will say, because it's obviously not confirmed, but I get the feeling that all that hate boils up, and for these very few white males that, you know, hit over, you know, their breaking point, then they go and do horrible things like, you know, the Parkland shooting. The guy who was at the Parkland shooting went to the school there previously. You know, he was like, what, 19? Right? And he went to school there like literally a year and a half before that. And he probably had some sort of hate, and he had those, you know, constant, you know, viewpoints thrown at him via the media.
Obviously the media, I think, it is not helping at all.
And it just psychologically messed them up. To the, you know, especially them being that young, and if they're not taught how to, you know, treat their personal problems or their emotional problems, and that just hate just boils up inside them until they do something rash and violent.
Yeah, and I think also part of the problem is this idea of white patriarchy in the system, and it's that, like, if you're born white, you're privileged, you have everything that you could ever want, and you are the problem, like, in this country. You are the reason that the problems happen in this country and around here, or at least you inherit all of the problems of your ancestors. And I'm like, well, the way
it's worded, a lot of times it's just so
negative,
virulent that it's just like, it's not going to get you anywhere. Like if they worded it differently, and at least, you know, if they initiated a dialogue, then obviously it would be better. I'm not saying that it would prevent all school shootings, but definitely,
it's
like,
definitely a way. It's a step in the right direction. Because I'm actually talking about it.
Because I'm left leaning, and I do agree with them sometimes. But like when they start going out and, like, you know, the patriarchy, you know, blah blah blah. That's
not. It's just not even what
that's
Western
not how you go at it.
Is based on.
Yeah, exactly. It's just.
Yeah, but like historically, it was all like just white.
Yeah, of course. That's where it gets mixed up. Like it was obviously predominantly white people doing that, and obviously in the East it was something else. But I think West was
Europe,
all like white men, and that's just how it had been for a long time.
Exactly. It's just.
But I think it's just a little confused sometimes. It's just, oh, the West is white patriarchal, and that's just how it always is. Like that's just not how. What it was based on. It just so happens that that's the color upon which that.
I mean, if you think about it, Rome was the most multiracial nation that ever existed, and it was a Western country. So.
Yeah. So
I just think, like, the truer, like, the closer we get to true, like, equality for everyone, like everyone at the same level, like male, female, quality of opportunity, like same level, everyone. based on, you know, like gender and race. Obviously, like, you know, there's still going to be like low income areas and high income areas.
It just happens in terms of like capitalism.
I feel like once we get closer there, like
yeah, but if you look at it statistically in the past, like in 1820, 90% of the world's population was in poverty. Now we're down to like less than 10% of the world's population. Like obviously that's a lot of people still. That's like, I don't know, in like 700 million, 700 million people are
roughly,
like something like that.
But
it's we're obviously you should still keep pushing like erase poverty, but we've made plenty of strides, a lot of strides, and I think that's something that we haven't taken into account.
I feel like that's non sequitur because we're talking relative to the other groups. Like
talking about America.
Black people statistically have less.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then in the past, 30 years, women statistically have had less opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely a lot of strides that we still can make in
Yeah.
terms of equality.
And
I mean,
like,
if you look
we
at
have made progress.
Yeah,
that's undeniable.
If you look at Scandinavian countries where equality opportunity is like the law and people in terms of sex, gender, race, what have you, it's completely equal in terms of opportunity. Mm-hmm. There are still differences between, men and women or what have you. They just have different desires and wants.
And the thing about that is that it's still a monolithic culture. Like in the U.S., we have all of this. So that's like a criticism you could probably throw at people that say look at the Scandinavian countries, because it's like, well, we're not like that. Obviously, it's a different culture entirely.
Yeah.
No, you got a point.
Yeah, we're making strides for that, and I'm definitely for more of a socialist democracy in that sense. Yeah. But I don't know.
Just as it pertains to the shooters.
Yeah.
I think that the media bouncing back and forth, both in negative ways.
Yeah.
Aren't helping some of these white males that have a lot of hate and have a lot of problems that they don't know how to deal with because they're not taught. I guess we can go into that. How parents raise their kids, even with us, how our parents raised our kids, and they don't have enough time to properly raise us. I assume a lot of us have had plenty of instances where our parents didn't really do anything but like provide for us, and that's about it. They didn't really have conversations about how to deal with feelings and how to go about navigating life. They were just like, okay, you got food on the table, all right, I gotta go work, I don't have time to really raise you and whatnot.
Well, plus like
properly,
what they teach you, it has to be from someone who actually knows, you know. Mm-hmm. And it would have to be someone who conveys their emotions in healthy ways, which is already a low amount of people.
But we're definitely
are those the only people who should be allowed to have kids?
No, I don't think we're saying that. But I think we're definitely...
I'm just fucking around.
That again, like I said, that might be a reason why we should try to introduce more philosophy and more literature into schools, or just like in the culture, just make that the cool thing, get into Stoicism. That's
nice self-promotion.
I feel like Stoicism is gonna like be a big thing
at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
or Buddhism.
I feel like it's gonna fucking explode. Well, Buddhism, like,
because they're very similar, not entire, obviously, but Stoicism.
There are a lot of religions and ideas, in terms of a way of life that say life is suffering, but you have to accept that and you have to move forward.
Because that's also existentialism, so philosophy and religion. So you do have a lot of outlets for that. Mm-hmm. So which is why, we'll keep watching the podcast.
I feel like Americans in particular, have a very unique situation where we don't have the time to do the things that we need to grow as human beings properly.
Because you think like we're overworked.
We are. I think that's
money driven.
I think that's
definitely a part of it for sure. But also people are choosing to do that as well. A lot of people choose to do that.
Choose to what? Be overworked?
Not like overwork, but like
to
not
work
be
more.
Overworked, but work more in turn.
Yeah, but like you kind of have to. Like it fucking sucks. Like it's hard to get a job that will actually help your family get to where it
Yeah,
needs to
for
be.
sure, and that's definitely
Like,
I think
a
that's
higher state of equality that we can get to. But there are, it's definitely part of it is people choosing to work.
I think the problem is most people feel like they need to overwork. Like I feel like it's less of a choice.
And that's something that they've promoted in Scandinavian as well as just other European countries was vacation time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, but, like,
paternal
that's a-
leave
yeah.
for kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, but the
and that
government
really helps
is-
because it's
productivity.
fundamentally different.
It's
And
because it's paid off.
for sure.
yeah, that's a huge cultural problem
Mhm.
that America has. Is that Americans, if you don't work, then what the fuck are you doing?
it's not a
Time is
cultural
money.
problem, it's an economical problem.
I mean,
No,
it's
partially,
it's
though.
culture.
No, it's definitely
like
a cultural problem.
It's
I'd
both.
say
It's both.
No,
I would say it's
because-
both.
it's definitely both.
No, because we can't all agree on that because companies will come in and like swoop underneath and grab the people that don't
Yeah,
agree.
but here's the thing.
And that's why we feel that
that's
way.
in the U.S. You don't really see
Yeah.
you get companies like that in Europe, and maybe it's because of the regulations and whatnot. But at the same time, it's still a U.S. thing. Like if you ask anyone else, they'll say
Yeah.
that it's a
Yeah.
very American thing.
Yeah,
No, I know it's an
and-
American thing, but I
Yeah,
think it's based on like how extreme our capitalism is.
It is.
How large our country is.
I think-
I
but-
think that plays into the economy
But
as well.
Would because like sorry.
No, go ahead.
Because I would say that maybe it's I agree with you that it's an economic thing, but it's now influenced the cultural.
Yeah,
that's
what I was
no.
about to say.
I'm
It's
saying
totally
it's
culture as
it's
well.
starting as an economical thing
Okay.
because
Yeah.
it's capitalism and it's the fact that everyone's now indisposable, and because of that,
I mean, disposable.
it's just like markets. It's the whole like flexible or elastic and inelastic markets. Like right now, like the people are the elastic market because we have to change
Yeah.
to fit the company's
Yeah.
inelastic needs.
Yeah, it's very result based. They don't care about anything other than getting results. So
Yeah,
if they need
exactly.
300,000 pencils, it doesn't matter what it takes.
It has to get done. It has to get done as cheaply as they can get away
It
with.
has to get done with the lowest cost at this specific date, no matter what. Whether it requires firing half the workforce in the process of making those 300,000 pencils. The American economy is a results-based
Yeah,
system.
I think definitely like it's not always that extreme, but I agree with
No.
like the concept. Like the concept is like all these businesses are pushed further and further and further to efficiency,
Yeah.
and that efficiency is causing a lack
Yeah.
for
It's-
empathy for the
Yeah,
human.
it's-
person.
It's also like American consumerism. Like that was an entire.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
consumerism, and then there's American consumerism. That's solely like
Yeah.
an American United States
Culture.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely a cultural thing as well. I think it started off as an economic thing, and it turns into a cultural
Yeah,
thing.
and
But
I
the
agree.
only way to
Yep.
change it is to change it from a cultural
Marx was
to
right.
an economic thing. Like
I
you
don't
have to
think
change
you
the
can get away with
mentality.
that.
You
Well,
definitely
We can't all. The
We're-
reason why we think that way is because of
the
these-
economic.
the
Well, I mean,
economics.
Yeah, for sure, but you have to change the mentality of the people first to want that
Yeah.
change, and
Wait,
to
what is-
get
Yeah, but
to that
it
point
doesn't
of the change.
align with the economics of the area.
Wait,
I
think
mean,
about
Well,
it.
no, what I'm saying is that we can change it. We're like a governmental system to the point that we can change that as well. We have the ability to change that, and we have to change the mentality of the people to vote and to want these changes to get that economic change.
Exactly. We're at a point in our society where the only way we can make change in the productivity of companies and stuff like that and consumerism is voting with our wallets.
Yeah, it's also
And ultimately,
That.
the
Yeah,
only
but
way that's going to change is if we-
economics, though. That's changing
No,
the
I-
economics.
Yeah,
of
but
what it
it's
would
got to
have
come from a cultural basis where we're all, for the most part, thinking, oh, we don't need instant gratification and we don't need these certain
Yeah.
items that
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
companies are trying to push on us now because they're the initiators now and we're so to speak slaves of the American consumer culture now, where they're pushing all their advertising, they're the ones running the show, and the only way we can do that is to have a
What's up?
change in mentality.
veganism.
Yeah,
Now we're on the way.
have
No.
a change of mentality for our culture so that we're not so consumer based.
Yeah.
And that in turn will change how much product companies are making and how they focus on efficiency so much.
then what would we be based on?
Well,
It's just changing our mentality from we need all this stuff to we don't need as many things.
I think that's a singular change. I think something would have to fill that. What do you
'Cause
suggest to fill that?
What would need to fill that?
Well, I think it's a change from a materialist standpoint to
Yeah.
more of like a
It's that kind of
Humanist.
change. From
humanitarian standpoint.
because that's why I would agree with Miles, where it's like it definitely is down to economics, but
Yeah.
the thing that's going to change, the impetus, is the cultural thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
if we just stick
yeah.
with the basic economics, well, money is what makes
No,
the
you're
world
right.
go round.
Like,
and all
there's
that,
nothing else
so.
it could be. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. It's just like to have any of these changes, we have to have the people on the side of the change.
The
Yeah.
socio-cultural
Because they're the
thing.
people that make the change.
Yeah.
They're the reason. They're the thing that makes the change happen.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Because ultimately, this train is powered by us, and so long as we keep powering this economic train,
The chain.
the
Both,
train,
I mean.
yeah, the train is going to keep going at the speed it's going,
Mm-hmm.
and we're the only ones who have the power to slow it down.
Yeah, absolutely.
you know?
That's I think that's kind of where you get into media and whatnot, and what type of message and
Oh, yeah.
information is dispersed to the people,
Yeah.
which I think calls for more neutral forms of media.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, I mean, if media is profitable, then it can never be neutral.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I mean, if
that's
you look
true.
at like Vice News on there, have you watched Vice News on TV? I mean, it's
No.
pretty. It's
I've seen,
fairly
like,
it's fairly neutral. Like
YouTube
obviously the
clips.
articles that they
Yeah,
put online and
they're
stuff.
pretty
That's a
liberal,
little
but-
different. But if you look at like online or in
On
terms of, like
TV?
they have TV, they run the news, they run the article. It's not people giving their commentary and
They had
like,
a-
left or right. They have some of it.
No, I was gonna say like they didn't they also have like a Peterson interview or something like that?
Yeah, they
I think they
recently
did.
did,
I
but
haven't watched
like
it.
on TV. That I
On
don't know
TV,
if that
though.
was on TV. I've watched
just a
like
video.
Vice News on TV. Like they have a certain segment for the day that's going on, and it's just telling you what's going on in the world. Like
On HBO, right? I think.
yeah, I think it's on
Yeah.
HBO, but it was very unbiased. They were just telling you what was going on. It didn't seem like they were trying to push forward any agenda. Obviously, they were. If anything, it was a better agenda. Like there was one thing I was watching. They were talking about like a banana epidemic. There's a certain virus that's
yeah.
like destroying bananas.
Because it's just one genius.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
One
one
species.
one species. We used to have a few different, but
Yeah.
now it's just one, and there's a virus that's like destroying bananas and whatnot. So it was just like reporting that it was going on, you know.
Yeah, no,
and exactly what we need to do to change it.
I definitely think a change in media like that would have to come from like a large scale change in like just how people think.
Mhm.
Because while that media
Yeah.
is
Well, don't you
better
think that's
and more
happening?
objective, huh?
Don't you think that's happening right now?
not
It's
at all.
changing a
A
little bit.
little
Like, 'cause
bit.
if you look at how people are consuming information, I mean, it's a lot more online. In the
Well, no, that's not what I'm
moment
saying at all. I'm saying like,
versus-
okay, so what like Fox News and like the extreme left
MSNBC.
CNN things that come in, not like super
MSNBC.
extreme. Yeah, like any of those like, you know, bipartisan outlets that push an agenda.
Right.
The reason why they're so popular is because they cater to what people want.
Right.
That want needs to change, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're the person that like they're the outlet that also provides them that change as well. So it's
Yeah,
kind
but
of
they wouldn't,
it's
like,
it's a
they're-
bit of a paradox.
It's an echo
Yeah.
chamber, basically.
Yeah.
like they
It's-
only
it's
listen
like-
to
it's-
one source, but that's why that source exists,
It's
and
a
that
vicious
was the
cycle.
purpose of that
So
source.
It's
it's
a
like what
self-fulfilling
came
prophecy.
first, the chicken or the egg?
It's like
It's
Yeah.
kind of a
listening to the
problem.
Bible.
Basically.
Wait a second.
Now, was it Steph sent me a PDF of this book. What is it called? I don't know if you guys have heard of it. The Practicing Line.
I think I've
Yeah.
heard of it.
Yeah, I read that recently, and that kind of changed my outlook on, especially American culture in general.
You should send me that PDF.
I think I will, because it really touches upon the difference between like Western and Eastern cultures. You know, like I think one of the big examples was the car industries, or the car companies or whatever. How American companies are numbers based. They don't care about the quality of the car. They just want to have a certain number of cars meeting at least the minimum
Yeah.
standards
Mm-hmm.
to go sell. And then by contrast, the Japanese car companies, they don't care how many cars they make. They just care about the quality of the cars they make.
Yeah.
They can make one really good car or 3 really good cars in a day, and it doesn't matter as long as they fulfill their role effectively.
The quality,
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
it's microeconomics. They have to hit that market equilibrium for the most efficient
Yeah.
everything. Like, it has to be the perfect price, so the right amount of people want to buy it, and that requires the right price of producing, and they can have a better quality product if they care less about their workers, because then costs go down. So they can have a better product, pay less, and just not care less, get more value out of their employees by paying the same amount to get a better product. And when you hit that market equilibrium, like, that increases the demand line of that equilibrium. So they make more money. Like, all it is like, it's just a really big fucking, like, just void of sympathy for people inherently.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
the book really, like, I think you guys should read it for your next podcast. It might,
We'll get you in the group chat and then just send us
it
the
might,
link.
it might
That's
change
all
your
it
view.
is.
It might change your
It's
view.
only like
It's only
100
like
pages.
It's only like 30
One
something
page book.
pages.
It's only 30
It's
pages,
very
so it's a
short.
pamphlet.
more or less.
So it's
It's like the version that Steps on me. It's like a rough draft of the book or whatever.
Oh, rough chat. Okay.
Yeah,
And
so
still,
there's
though,
like typos and stuff. But you get the general idea of what the ideas he's trying to give
who's
out.
that by? I feel like I've heard of it because of the author.
Deepak
I have to
Chopra.
look it up.
No, hopefully not.
But yeah, like I think that kind of viewpoint.
Jordan Peterson.
I think that kind of viewpoint would better American society as a whole. Going
I
from
agree.
instant gratification, consumer culture, I need this now, these deadlines have to be hit by this time no matter what. I think that if we can try and do away with that.
Thomas M. Sterner.
Is that
Not a name I
his
know.
one?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least
Yeah, it
Go.
just reducing the amount of consumerism we partake in would help a lot.
Yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that a step in the right direction is more towards like a socialist democracy, like in terms of like Scandinavian countries and stuff like that, because they really made huge strides in terms of like economic socialist safety nets that like save people in terms of legal issues and whatnot. Like it's fixing the problem at the base instead of just being reactionary and
Right.
think, oh, I have to compensate you monetarily because this happened, whatever.
Yeah, it's fixing the root of the problem rather than giving a temporary solution that you have to pay for in money.
Yeah, so
it will never get fixed.
So you might be paying a little bit more in terms of like workers and quality of your product, but ultimately you're paying a lot less in terms of damage to them and like
And
lawsuits
investment.
and stuff like that.
You're investing in the long term rather than
Right now.
mass producing and investing in the short term.
Yeah. I don't know. I still think like companies just actually like cared about their employees, or at least put in things that were like, reasonable, like paternal leave. Not everywhere has that.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
they really
just basic things like guaranteed like vacation time, just kind of across the board.
Yeah.
Are we going?
We just need like more. At this point, like a lot of the structures that are in our society right now are kind of unmovable in that sense, unless you just shut down the system entirely. So for things like the school system in West Virginia being shut down because all the teachers are protesting at the moment, like we need things like that. We need like mass walkouts to get change happening.
Well, yeah, it's also depends on the people that are doing it. Like it has to be done by the workers
Yeah, well, I mean,
themselves. Like it can be people protesting on
Like
the
we
outside.
can walk out of this room right now.
No,
That's not gonna do anything.
No, I'm just talking about like the people that are running, the people that are running the show for these companies need to step away, shut down their system for a bit, and demand for change.
It's not talking
Because
about like
I
an
know-
overall like anarchical overthrow of
Yeah,
a
we're just-
system. It's just like
And
certain changes need to happen.
Yeah,
And I think that just goes back to what I said earlier. We're so disposable. Like if a group of people surges and they're like, "Hey, this isn't right,"
Yep.
suddenly we're the ones who don't have jobs, and then it gets
Look
filled
at
by the
the-
people who want jobs.
And
Look at the protesters outside of a Walmart. Easily.
Like no one cares, their jobs just got taken.
Yeah.
No
Well,
one cares.
No
They
one
stood out
cares
there for
because
like
it's
nothing.
only. No one cares because it's a few people that aren't working that are
Yeah, it's
protesting.
either people that are paid on the outside, or it might be like one worker that does it and you can just
And-
fire and hire somebody else.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
People need to have more courage as a group to like, get leverage against these companies and actually get like the benefits they need, like you said, paternity
least
leave or better wages.
Know the leverage that they
Yeah.
do have because they're the things that actually make it happen.
I
It's all of them.
I just think
Yeah.
the fact is like it's not worth it. It's not
worth it.
worth having vacation time versus like not having a job.
It's only worth
Yeah,
it if
it's just-
that's the
That's the
problem.
problem.
It's a huge-
Exactly.
It's
high
Exactly.
risk, high reward.
It's only worth it if everybody does it. It's not worth it if a few people do it because they can.
I
get
think Connor has a good point. Like it's very like it's not risk averse like at all.
yeah.
And most
No.
people tend to be.
Well, people are afraid to lose stuff.
Well, I
in
mean,
America.
it's
People
like
are-
it's having a job
especially-
is your livelihood. in
That's
this
what I'm
country.
saying.
Yeah.
It's not just a thing. It's like keeping you alive. So that's why it
But
has a
people-
higher.
But people are afraid to group together and risk it for the greater good.
Well, I don't think it's afraid. It's just that they
They
don't
are.
know. It's that they don't know that the power that they actually do have.
That too.
Partially, yeah.
Yeah, people don't understand that if everybody at Walmart, all the employees walk
They
out,
literally
then
walked out.
then
But
the
I mean,
store's done.
they have been making some strides.
Yeah.
Their minimum
Yeah.
wage in terms of Walmart is like what, $11 now?
But they
Yeah,
had
I
to
think they
close
make
down.
Something like that. They closed down a
multiple-
few, but of course, it might not just mean that. It just
Oh.
might mean like, it's like the worst ones that are there are really
Yeah.
bad Walmarts that
Just
need to
business.
be
Yeah.
closed.
Well, I mean, it's
Obviously, I'm sure that it had to be attributed to that. Like you just
Well-
don't imaginarily make up a whole bunch more money.
Well, here, I mean, at least the thing that gets for me, and this is not based on any facts or anything, but I find it very interesting that with the Walmart,
And Target too. Target I think
Walmart.
went up to like $12 an hour.
I
something like that.
I find it funny that the second that they announced that they were raising wages for like employees at Walmart, the second that happened, like all the shitty Walmarts and all the Sam's Clubs immediately were like, so we're closing down right now? Almost as if they had, crunched the numbers real quick and they're like, we're not going to be able to do it, and they closed down right there and then.
And that's the problem too. Like it's not that they can't do it; it's that it's not cost effective as much as closing that and opening another one.
Yeah, they're not willing to
Somewhere
risk anything.
Yeah.
If there's any sort of risk that's in the, above a certain threshold of negativity, or that would cost them any sort of money, it's just they don't want to take the risk. They'd rather-
Exactly.
they'd
Yeah,
rather
that's
shut
hard
down.
too. But like it depends on like, and how high risk it is. Because if it's a big risk and they're not getting much in return,
Yeah.
it could topple
exactly.
an entire company. Like you could just overthrow Walmart as a company, and it could easily burn down.
Mm-hmm.
Metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Burn
It-
down.
Wait,
Walmarts.
under what situation are we talking about here?
Well, in that sense, like there, you have like I don't know how many Walmarts closed. Do you guys know?
I don't know.
There was a
Ones are
lot of
closed?
Sam's
I
Clubs
want
that
to
closed.
guess a lot of
Sam's-
Sam's Clubs closed. But I think a
Holy
lot
crap.
of Walmarts because they're very cheap. Like I think it's very hard to keep up something like that unless you have a lot of people coming in there because you're selling your product for really cheap.
Mm.
Well, not only that, but like I assume the wages have something to do with it because
Yeah,
Sam's Club
absolutely.
wasn't included in that wage hike.
Yeah, I don't think that
I know.
too.
And-
so that's kind of like a shitty backfire, but you're gonna have some backfire for every change. Like,
Obvious.
something has to happen.
Yeah, but
Obviously, a whole bunch of people's jobs shouldn't be. They
jeopardized.
should at least have provided some type of compensation.
Like people,
maybe-
somebody getting raises shouldn't mean that other people have to lose their jobs. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
there
but-
should be some sort of competition, which is something that the free market isn't. Competition, which is something that the free market currently is not partaking in, is competition, because
What do you mean?
people don't like to compete in areas.
What do you mean?
I mean, yeah, it's like the best business practice to like have a business in
A
like an
monopoly?
insaturated place. Like the best business is the only business in that space.
No, but I
obviously,
mean, like
but-
companies are afraid to risk, competing against other companies, and so they'll go to some place where the market is entirely theirs.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
will
that's what I'm saying.
strategically locate themselves in such a way that they don't have to compete with anyone, so they
Yeah.
don't have to worry about wages or they don't have to worry about prices.
Yeah, I mean, microeconomically, a monopoly is the best
Yep.
business.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when it comes down to big changes in the system, like wage hikes, that means anybody who's even remotely competing with them automatically have to default that they're done. There's no competition. It's just either you win or you lose, or you both live in quote unquote equal harmony. And
I
there's
think
no in
there's
between.
definitely still
there's
a healthy
definitely
amount of competition, but I think the amount of monopolies that have surged
It's insane.
are scary.
It is.
Well, I mean, it's scary, but it just, and not monopolies, but like there's a very high, like very small percentage that carries a lot of the weight in terms of.
It's a fucking
producing-
shit ton.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
Have you
at the
seen that
beginning-
graph? That's like the 5 companies that basically rule all
Yeah,
of
that
America.
happens in everything in terms of there's competition. There's just, they found no way to control that. Like any form of government that has like redistributed money back to the bottom, it just automatically goes right back into
Well, no, I think it's just legislation against monopolies and actually going through with it and
Look,
avoiding
well,
lobbying.
it's still,
Teddy
it's still
Roosevelt
not,
is like
it's
at the
still
heart
not a
of it.
monopoly though, because you still have like Sam's Club and Walmart. Obviously, are one thing. You have Target, you have Kmart, whichever the other ones are. It's just always a very small, very very small percentage of people are producing 80%
Yeah,
of the
but
product.
that's not the market that I'm like talking about
We're
necessarily.
just talking about like
a lot of the
storefronts
things that you
competing.
think aren't competing are actually owned by the same company.
Well, yeah, I know. Like,
that's what I'm
like,
saying.
I
Yeah,
know
that's
that
what I'm saying.
Sam's
Yeah, I'm talking
Club
about like
Sam's Club isn't fighting Walmart. Sam's Club is fighting Costco.
Sam's Club is Sam's Club is owned by Walmart, right? Or something.
Yeah.
Is it?
No. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what
No.
you said was closed because
Yeah.
Walmart raised the wages of a bunch of Sam's Club.
Yeah, because I think Sam's Club, like one of the, because like obviously the Wall in Walmart is from the Walton family, and then one of them is named Sam, and then Sam's.
But yeah,
Club.
what I was like, you've heard the Pareto distribution, right?
Which was it?
The I think it's called the Pareto distribution.
No.
About like the 10%, 5% of the producers make over like 80% of the product in any given area.
Yeah.
But
Something
yeah,
like that.
so
I
it's
don't
like if even if you try to distribute it, like take them down or something, or redistribute some power, it always goes back up to a very small percentage, just producing most of it. I mean, that's what happened with, like, if you look at old, like, Mozart, Bach, and a few, I think, like, 2 other artists, they produced, like, 80 to 90% of all the music that was listened to in their time. Like, it's just,
Right.
but there's a high percentage of,
That
yeah, see, like,
goddamn
look at that.
bourgeoisie.
it's in
Like, this is fucking crazy.
that graphic is insane.
This is the one I'm talking about in particular. Like, fucking PepsiCo owns all of this shit.
What was the
all of it.
quote you were gonna say, Miles? The Teddy Roosevelt one?
Oh, I was gonna say, Teddy Roosevelt did some monopoly busting in his day,
We need
and I
another
think
one.
something like that definitely needs to happen.
Like, Breyers and Ben & Jerry's are owned both by Unilever. Like, they're not competing.
yeah, because problems like this arise where the market isn't so free as people keep talking about, and it's already predetermined and preset by companies who make agreements to cut up areas so they don't have to
I
compete.
think, like,
Well,
like-
that's one thing is that, how,
You
like,
know?
obviously we always say that communism is always good only in paper, but you kind of see the other extremes of other economic forms, and that's kind of the same point,
Yeah.
libertarianism, capitalism.
this is the downside
It's
of
not a
capitalism.
defense for communism, obviously, but this is that it's the same effect of capitalism.
I think this is just like, it's impossible to avoid because, like, a big company will see a smaller company that's making profit and try to buy it.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter what it is necessarily,
Yeah.
but they could just try to buy it, take in that income, and it's an investment. Suddenly, it's an entire different, like, entity, and then when both those grow, they can do it again, and then they can do it again, and compound and
And that's
compound and
why-
compound.
yeah, or if they, like, say they go to a company like that, a bigger company goes to a smaller company, and they say no, they're gonna
buy the competitor, run them out, and then buy them, and then raise the prices.
Yeah.
And then
But I mean, even if you were to somehow shoot this down, it wouldn't take long for something like this to come
that's
back
what I'm
up.
saying.
Well,
I'm saying, like,
it's
this is
cyclical.
inevitable.
It always happens.
It's-
That's the
yeah,
distribution that always happens.
Yeah.
it's the capitalism cycle.
It's not
But
just
it-
capitalism. It's happened in many different economic systems in the past for almost all history.
Well, it's at least for now, this kind of thing is a cycle, and I think we need to do a little smashing. And
Well,
reordering.
the thing is if
Get another
you
Teddy
smash it
Roosevelt.
now, somebody else is going to take the place in some other form.
Yeah, but it'll take quite a while for that to reform again.
It really doesn't.
let me
It really
pose
doesn't take
this.
much time.
Let me pose this
because-
option. What if they said no one company, like one group, one organization, can operate more than 3 separate entities.
Then you take out the idea of free enterprise.
Yeah.
I think
Cool.
so. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just saying.
I mean,
I'm just saying, like,
you know?
if you have like a company and you produce a good or a service, if you can't incorporate all similar things within that company, like, I'm just saying, like, this chart would probably still be owned by the same people. But
Yeah, I mean,
when
yeah,
you go to a
it's-
store, there would be a craft aisle, or there would be like a PepsiCo aisle, and then people would actually be able to understand that, like, all the shit when you go to the store, it's all the same.
Yeah.
How many companies are there? 9?
It's about 9
Something
on
like
there.
that. But I mean, like, say
10?
if you put that in there, I'm sure there's going to be some loophole that they can go through. Like, say you said one company can only own like 3 other companies. So, what if one of those companies own 3?
No, I'm saying like one entity can only operate 3, and those entities are not the same as an operating entity. It's just like right now, like, you can make an LLC, but that LLC cannot hold another LLC. You have to change the form of the initial LLC, and then that would be limited to, hey, the overarching companies that manage subsidiary companies, and which are the only ones that are allowed to have subsidiary companies, you're limited to 3.
Okay, I think that would turn into them branching out the products that they produce.
Exactly.
As well.
That's what I'm saying.
So
I'm
you
saying,
just always get back to this point.
yeah, that's exactly what I said after. We would
Yeah.
still be
Well,
here,
there would still
but I
be-
think it would be more apparent. I
would-
think people would understand what's going on better, and I think it would inform the public more of to what the fuck is going
Well,
on.
if we
Yeah,
had,
but I mean, even if we did inform them, what would happen?
well, these
Like what?
these
I
guys.
just think, like, I think this is
obviously
deceptive.
they should definitely be informed of what's going on. But you know,
These-
if they know that they all know this or not, like, what difference would it make?
I think it takes a step in the right direction to maybe creating some sort of economy or something where this can be avoided.
Well, these companies are all taking parts of the market entirely. They're not, you know, they aren't selling everything in the market, right? So like,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola is what?
Yeah,
Taking
obviously
over.
Coca-Cola goes against PepsiCo for like their drink products.
Yeah.
and
Now, what
stuff
if you
like
had
that.
smaller? What is it? LLCs, right?
Yeah.
Smaller groups.
Yeah, it could be that.
And they had to adjust their prices because everybody's trying to sell. You know, like you said, they wanted to expand their product, right? That's what you're saying. You know,
Something
so
like
like
that.
all these smaller companies are expanding what they're selling, and if they're selling the same things, that means they would have to compete
But
price-wise
yeah, and
with
at
each
the same
other.
time too, like one of the main reasons why they separate these is for like protection from the other ones. Like if
Yeah.
Tide goes under, you know, Joy is fine still, Gain is fine. But if they were not allowed to do that, if one section goes under or fucks up, it hurts the whole company,
Yeah.
which in turn would allow more room for development in other companies
Yeah.
if it takes business away from that.
It's really hard
It's-
to get around that.
It's a complex
Yeah.
issue.
Economy's really tough.
I don't know.
It's
Probably not up for anyone who doesn't have an economics.
Yeah, I
degree,
mean, it's not me. Fuck. I'm just like,
getting a general idea.
I'm just
Yeah.
thinking through
Stating
ideas
it.
and trying to like understand more, like what the fuck is even going on here. Because I don't know. Nothing I posed I actually think is like what we should do. I'm just
That's
posing
just an
random
idea.
things and try to like see what might happen and seeing if that can gain me more information
All right,
so I can understand this better.
let's turn this great gigantic tangent back to our original problem, which was
Okay.
Postmodernism.
no.
What?
Okay, the first step.
Why?
Why
What was this?
all
What
these
is
why all
going
these white males are shooting up schools?
Oh.
Because that was the original
This one?
Dude,
idea.
we gotta
right?
rewatch
Oh, that was
just
mine.
to
We
see
can
that
do mine.
tangent.
Right?
What was it?
Yeah. I mean, that was the question beforehand.
Because we were
if
talking.
determinism is
Oh.
like real and we don't
We're
have
just
free
talking about
will.
the other questions.
Should people be punished for their actions the same way they are today? Yeah. So like if you accept that when someone, you know, goes crazy and fucking like road rage, not goes crazy, but like if someone road rages and fucking kills someone, or you know, if someone does drunk driving or something, should they be
Have
punished?
repercussions for that?
Or should it be the same as it is today if we, as a society, would accept that like free will isn't real and what happened was an accumulation of past events for this person, and like in that moment there wasn't anything else.
We might have to catch up Miles on that.
Can you elaborate on that? Talking about free will,
is saying that like
everything's predetermined.
Yeah, essentially. Like for any state that the universe can be in, there's only one next logical state. Is kind of the idea. Like there's only one step that can like advance further at any given point, and because of that, like every next step is always going to be one, and there's only one way everything can play out.
I think the way it was in the last podcast was essentially if the universe were to start all over again, would everything play out the exact same way?
But if we rewound the clock to a certain point and just played it again, it'd be the exact same thing.
Yeah, like
so
you're talking
your
about
illusion of choice is kind of destroyed by the fact that you made a choice happened, and it was based on something, and what that something
based on your past
occurred.
choices. Right.
For the most part, it's also like biological, like the composition of your brain, because that's partly like IQ and things like that.
Because I was thinking of P.F. Skinner. I don't know if you ever looked into him.
Skinner locks,
the psychologist, and he was like, basically, we don't really have free will because all of our actions are based on actions beforehand, and those actions were based on actions beforehand, and obviously there's like one root cause of every action, and that was probably out of our control. So like our parents probably instilled into us our tastes, and there's still obviously the biological factor, but psychologically it's like,
Okay. All right.
It's just like from all angles, you kind of don't have an original.
I definitely can't argue that because I can't wrap my head around that, but I can definitely be
Can I just do one thing to maybe try to get you there, because it's kind of more simple.
Because like the way you're trying to, or maybe it's just the way you guys are trying to frame it, but it still seems like it's.
No, it's not the simple.
You're still making choices.
Free will can't exist because the only thing that has ever impacted your brain is your environment. It's the only stimuli your brain has ever had outside of itself.
So what you're saying is that you, as a person, as an entity, is basically the sum of everything that's happened.
Yeah, including biological development and obviously injuries.
And that's a wheel that's going to keep on spinning no matter what you do.
Well, anything you would do would be caused from that.
Yeah. It's just a chain of cause and effects rather than you making choices in the moment.
Well, you still have consciousness, and you still have feelings, and you still have emotions, but none of those prove free will at all because you're always working off your brain.
Okay.
If you could somehow process things outside of your brain and outside of the tangible universe, you might be able to find free will, but that's kind of absurd.
Yeah. Okay.
Free will cannot logically fit in like the tangible universe.
Okay.
Is the theory.
Okay.
That's one I personally subscribe to, so that's why I felt the need to kind of go through it.
Okay. All right.
But that's generally, where determinism comes from. It's like everything is already set in motion. That doesn't mean that you should fucking give up. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try.
Oh no.
What do you think about
like that?
Evolution
and
random mutation?
That's the environment. So.
Well, yeah, it's in a sense a reaction to. It's not a set reaction to your environment per se.
What do you mean?
Like when
evolution?
Evolutionarily, like obviously there are some things that it's not set that you will evolve into something that will keep you going in terms of like a passing on your genes and whatnot per se. But in Darwinism and evolution, it's based on random mutation. Like you reproduce until something works.
What does that have to do with free will?
Well, you're saying that...
I think the focus is free will or not versus...
I think Darwinism and that form of evolution is in a species, mutation may happen, And then if that mutation happens to be more beneficial to reproducing, then it continues on, more likely. Sometimes like, random events happen and things like that would affect like certain areas of the population, but those aren't random, they're the environment. It's like, tornadoes, like shit like that. All that stuff is happening. It all has a set determined cause. Maybe not like determined, that's probably the wrong word to use. I believe it would be determined, but they all have objective causes if you can go back and look at it.
Okay.
And if something didn't have an objective cause, then there may be free will, but and just because we can't pinpoint the determined cause doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But so that's like the general.
Idea.
We got way too like into that, but the idea is, if what people do is like it's the only thing they can do, even if consciousness exists.
If you have one option, it's the only option you have.
Not even that. Like
Right.
that's kind of like against it. Like it's not an option. Like it's just what
It's just
happens.
what
If what
happens.
happens, should people be punished the way that they are today? Because that's one of the issues that people who believe against free will and for determinism usually have. Is like, oh, it wasn't their fault. Like it's all that shit.
Can I get an example? Can you use
Yeah.
that
So
in a
the
sentence?
example that I was looking at before is this guy road rages, goes to jail because he like fucking hit someone or killed them or something like that. I think the extremeness doesn't matter. Just say like he caused something to happen and he was then sentenced to jail for like 10 years. The amount of time doesn't matter.
Okay, we're just talking
Yeah,
about
he
There's
was
some type of
punished for that.
repercussion
we're talking about
Yeah.
cause and effect.
So some determinists would say, some extreme ones would say, he was not at fault because fault from a human, or like fault like doesn't really exist. There's nothing else that he would have done in that situation because there's nothing else that he could have done because of the lead up to that moment.
Okay.
So
Now,
yeah, in my opinion, because I believe like very firmly in determinism, is more so like instead of like punishing people just for punishing's sake, I think it should be focused a lot more on rehabilitation if we can understand why they made that decision. Because determinism says that like, all those reasons or all those actions have reasons behind them. If we can pinpoint that reason that a negative action was caused, we can rehabilitate them to not
the whole
do that
point
anymore.
of the rehabilitation would be to give them a choice to do it or not.
No, it would
To
be
give them-
to it would be to
To give them the option to, instead of being on this destructive path in their lives, to give them the. I guess this would be my argument to that. It would give them the choice to better their lives if they were given rehabilitation, or continue along their destructive path.
Well, that sounds like reactionary more than proactive.
I
What do
think
you mean?
that.
Well, you said rehabilitation, so that rehabilitation has to happen after the fact.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying crime's not going to happen. I'm saying that instead
Yeah.
of putting someone in jail for 10 years, if we can figure out why they did that, and if we have a good scientific way to treat that somehow,
Then they
and
simply won't
explain
do
to
it
them
anymore.
and get them to understand why what he did is not, not necessarily morally right, but like,
Just objectively.
well, I mean, objective right and wrongs are kind of tricky, but like it's something
Okay.
that he shouldn't have done, I guess.
That we generally agree on that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That we generally agree on, which are pretty much laws.
Huh.
That's kind of like
I'm intrigued.
the
I think-
idea behind that.
I think something I would bring up is like, say, a psychopath, right?
Yeah.
He enjoys killing people.
Yeah, but that's a
and-
mental condition, so that would be something that we would treat anyways.
Well, yeah. Well, what I'm saying is like if there's
That's something out of his
something
control.
that you out of his control,
Right.
and there's not something. There's just certain people that can't be rehabilitated.
Well,
Yeah,
if you
I
go
mean-
by
So,
the.
like,
or sorry,
if,
go for it.
would you just let them roam free if there's no form of punishment, only rehabilitation?
No, and let me go back. There's,
Are you?
as
are
I
you
said,
saying
there's not absolutely zero punishment, because punishment still needs to exist,
Yeah,
but
right.
punishment in the form of rehabilitation when possible is the best.
there you
That's
go.
what
You
I've
didn't say
been
when
pushing.
possible, that's
I said, like, if we can determine what made that issue and we have some science behind it that could help them, then we do that instead of just throwing them in prison, which I think most people can agree on. But I think from like a deterministic like way to look at it, like it's just, you know, it's the best way to do it. And I get so pissed when I hear shit like that. We're like, oh, determinism, oh, like fucking he didn't mean to kill those people, like that's just like what he had to do. He shouldn't go to jail because there's no options there. You didn't have any options. Like, that's not the point of determinism at all. You know, we still, like, actions still happen, you know, and actions happen based on, you know, mental processes.
My question would be then, what would your definition of free will be?
Non-existent.
What would that be? Because
I don't know.
it's assumed we all have free will in some capacity, correct?
Well, I think that's exactly what determinism says.
Yeah,
There's not.
determinism says that, like,
There's
there
no free
is
will,
no
period.
free will. There's consciousness. You can be self-aware, but that's not free will. Consciousness is like consciousness. They're not synonyms. They're
that's
different
just-
concepts.
Yeah, but that's why I'm asking what
Conscious
would your
existence.
definition of free will be? Just to kind of frame, I guess for me, what you're trying to get at.
Ideas that come outside of, or ideas that would not be based on the environment at all. Or I guess, like, not entirely based on the environment.
Go on.
Actions that would not be entirely influenced by the environment has to be free will. I think that's where I'm getting at.
Not totally, or just
Totally.
Totally not environment.
Totally determined by the environment, which includes biological composition, because that's influenced completely by the environment. That's how you were grown.
That's how you're born,
Yeah,
made,
yeah,
grown.
yeah,
Biological and environmental.
yeah.
Yep.
But, like, the environment here is, like, everything in the tangible universe. But then we can go further and we can say, in relation to other things, there's also, like, environments. Like, if I'm talking about my brain, I can say my brain in relation to its environment, which is everything around it that impacts
So-
it in any way, direct or indirect.
What would you say would be outside of environmental?
That's just it. There's nothing.
I mean, isn't the whole
What's your guys' definition of
No,
free will?
I'm pretty sure you guys are all. Maybe it's just me. Connor? What
Well,
would
I'm
your...
having a hard time here because it's really pushing forward the idea that you don't have a choice.
You don't. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
So what you're saying is...
Well, I
Well,
mean,
there's no you to make a choice. You're a brain that's just doing these processes over and over and over and over and over again. And yes, while some of it is conscious,
Yeah, you
it's
can be
still it's still a process
Yeah, but
being
I'm just
impacted
saying,
by nothing other than the environment.
that's why I was asking, like, what do you think free will is?
Well, the
Because,
thing
at
is-
least for me, I think it's
I think it's
having,
like a
I think
or
it's,
he's talking about like
having a choice.
free
Free will is having the choice to choose what you want to do, obviously based off of what has happened in the past.
Well, I think the reason why
That's
he
just
was-
consciousness, though.
Versus determinism, which is going along a set path because you don't have a choice. That doesn't, you can be conscious of the ride you're on in determinism, but
Like,
you don't
if I
get to make any
choose to
choices.
pick this up,
That's your choice. You chose to either pick it up or stand up.
I disagree, because I had a set reason to do this. My reasoning was built entirely on the environment over my development. So my reasoning to do this is based entirely on my environment, which can be in the past.
Okay.
So I thought that this would be a good example to do, where I could show you of me doing something that appears to be a choice, because my body can move in different ways, and I have the ability to say different words just because of the physicalness, like the physical existence of my mouth. Like, if I can say any word,
Yeah.
So I'm choosing to say these words, but it's not really a choice because it's what I think will best convey the message to you. And I determined that that would be the best thing for me to do because I find satisfaction in teaching other people things. And that satisfaction comes back to biological, and it's just things, processes happening within the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind tells, like, the mind wants more of it, and it understands that that's how it gets it.
I guess where I kind of see is like, you're doing it in that instance, but for the entire time that the notepad was there, you technically could have always done it. You just never had the reason to do it. So it's just like, yeah, you had that reason at that moment, but before you even had that conversation about determinism, you still could have picked it up.
The physical ability of my body does not equate to an option.
Okay.
That's what I was getting at. Like, yes, my body can move in all these different ways.
Yeah.
But that's not an option. It's just a way that something can physically be in space. But since my body is controlled entirely by my brain, which was developed entirely by the environment, my body is controlled by my past environment, including biological processes of development and things like that.
I think that might be where the issue, where that sort of conflict arises, is because, like, I don't really see that as an option. I just see that as a reason. Because you, like I agree with you that you said it's just an option. Well, it's not an option because obviously, you know, everything led up to that moment. But it's like, you just didn't have the reason to do it beforehand. But you're right in the sense that, well, that's because, you know, everything from that moment up, you know, biological, environmental process, like, it just, you know, I don't know, I guess just like, I'm just on that idea of reasoning, you know, you didn't have that reason to, but you could have. But it wasn't an option because obviously...
I think you're proving my point.
I'm saying that
yeah.
I'm saying with agreement to you that I think it was just a linguistic sort of confusion, I guess.
Like, your reasoning and your emotions come completely from your brain, and your brain was completely derived in the material universe and was impacted only by the environment.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define environment?
Yeah, I already did. It's everything in the tangible universe. And then from there, if you wish, you can say in relation to something else.
The tangible universe, so things that you can touch or affect you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that can affect you is your environment. Anything that indirectly or directly affects you in any way is your environment, the environment of your body right now.
The universe in its totality.
Yes, but at the same time, your body is part of the environment because it's everything. So right there, I was talking in relation. So your environment is everything that impacts you directly or indirectly, but the environment itself is everything real. It's everything that in our universe.
Everything that's real.
At
so
least.
What do you think about ideas?
They're all in your brain. What do you think, that they just float outside of this universe somewhere?
They're not real. They're not tangible. You can't.
Yeah, they're not tangible, but they're real. They're occurring within your brain. Like,
you know who said something about that?
All this shit on the computer. All this shit on the computer is happening in that computer. No. Otherwise, where is it coming from?
Well,
I think the computer is a little different.
You're thinking
because
what? How is it different? How is it different?
At least
because it's not coming up with these things on its own. We compute
it
to
is.
make it. No, we compute all these things to make sure that these processes happen.
It's happening on its own. We're not interacting with.
Yeah,
this
well, we
at
set it
all.
up so that it happens that way.
Yeah, and you were born. So you're determined. You're determined just like this was then.
Yeah, but I don't think because I was born, I was determined to take a shit at 12 o'clock on Saturday.
No, but then after you were born, you were fed a certain diet at a certain time. You know, you were breastfeed at certain times, and then like it just all led up to that moment to shit at 12.
I get that.
Because you were like you were awake at midnight.
Don't get
for
me
whatever
wrong.
reason.
I understand the idea if like you wind back the clock, everything that leads up to this point has led you to that specific point in time.
Well, I think what it might be is that. Not going with that eternal recurrence thing, but it's just like if you did experience some minor change in your life, then maybe you actually wouldn't have been taking a shit at midnight. You would have been taking a shit at 12:01 a.m. just because maybe you ate food at a little bit, you know, later time, which then, you know, changed your digestive system and then blah 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 blah.
It's the idea of possibility, and just just the concept of possibility invokes free will. Because at any point you could possibly pick up that notepad over there. And at least for me, the way you're trying to frame it, it seems like it's purely just a cause-effect type deal, which could be applied to objects.
Yeah.
Things that aren't conscious.
Look, the struggle here,
Because we're not,
man, I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. It sucks to accept that the brain is basically no different from that fucking desk.
Yeah.
It's a physical thing, and it fucking sucks. It's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why we have to die.
Yeah.
But it exists in this universe,
Will you
and it's in
perish
one
or
state.
die like a dog?
There is no
This never
you.
dies.
It's
Yeah,
your
but-
brain making all these processes, and it's what you kind of conceive as you, but there's
Yeah.
no you outside of your brain. It's all there, and in your state right now, if you completely froze time, your brain is in a particular state. It's in that thought, it's in all like the history that you have stored in your mind, all your reasoning, all your emotions, everything, and it's in that one particular state. It has to move on to a next state,
Yeah.
and there's only one it can be. There is no way to deviate that. If you start thinking about like anything in the next smallest like amount of time, you will continue to think about that, and
Okay.
it will always compound, and it will always continue. Nothing can like break that because there's nothing in between it.
Unless we traverse dimensions.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like your brain is in this universe.
Okay.
I guess to answer
Well,
the,
see, I also
just-
that one thing I had brought it up before about drugs and psychedelics and whatnot.
Let's do drugs on the
that's
podcast.
one thing that I have a hard time understanding,
Okay, so
because it's not set what reaction you're going to have. Like obviously the physical chemical reactions
Well,
in your body.
yeah, but
things that
something
you
happens.
see aren't set.
no, but that's a result of the chemical reaction. Because like I was gonna say that
absolutely.
because you mentioned that thoughts are intangible. You can't really see a thought or feel it. Like it exists because you just know that it exists, right? But it's like if you do an MRI scan, you know, it's just activity in the synapses of your brain, and then we just perceive it differently because we're so used to audio visual way of seeing the world. So that's how we see a thought. But if you just look at it, you know, and it's just hard to do it because we're human and this is the only way we can observe the universe. But it's like if you could see it, a thought wouldn't be what you imagine a thought is. It would just be the synapses reacting in your brain.
all it is
So
is
it is just
electrical
a
pulses in your brain.
material
Yeah.
object.
And
Even
it's
though it
definitely
just doesn't.
reactions in your body and like the chemicals and every way that your brain is set up is exactly what sets it up for you to perceive the world and how your
Right.
eyes are set up. And
Yeah, so
whatnot.
when you take that tab of acid, the molecules break up, and then they go into your body because of the physical state that the molecules were in and your body was in.
Yeah.
And they will continue down that track, and then whatever the fuck else happens, I don't know like the science behind it, but somehow it gets to your brain. But that process of it getting to your brain or affecting you like that is the molecules interacting with their direct environment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
get what you're saying. So, I mean,
And the second
what I'm having a hard time with is people can do drugs the exact same way and have the same setup in their brain, but they can see different things.
They have
I mean, you
different-
don't know if they don't have the exact same brain, and at the same time, you might see different things because you have different information stored in your brain.
Well,
if I
okay, but see,
duplicated you.
This is where I talked about DMT.
Well, that's the thing. I kind
it's-
of want to quote a philosopher. The
Is it somebody who's done
pre-Socratic.
psilocybin?
No, pre-Socratic Heraclitus, who said that no man crosses the same river twice, for he is not the same man, nor is the river the same. And I was thinking, like, if you take a drug, a psychedelic drug, different times, you are a different person. Like, even if you take it back to back or whatever, you aren't the same person. Like, your literal brain structure is different because you form memories, and that changes your brain.
But
So
here's where I have a refute to that specifically in DMT is that no matter what way people have been raised, no matter if they have different, like obviously a length of time it actually affects them is different to each person. But what they see, no matter where they're from, they see the exact same thing and they don't know how to explain it.
The same thing?
Yeah, they all describe what they see as the same thing.
Yeah, but like if I look at that wall, if we all looked at that wall, we would all see that wall because we're all doing the same thing. So that you can't just throw that out.
Just in the case of DMT, well, in that case, if people are ingesting the same drug, then in the same quantity, then it's affecting them all more or less in the same state. Because obviously everybody's body is different, and obviously their experiences are different. But because how do you take DMT? I don't know anything about it.
I have not, but any researchers who have like...
Well, like, what's the main form of take?
Really,
like, is that a pill? Do you just put on your tongue?
It's usually, I mean, you can do it some different ways.
Yeah,
but
obviously.
Really, it's not necessarily the substance itself. It's more of a substance that turns down the receptors, because you have DMT in your body already.
Oh, okay,
It produces it, but it turns down those receptors so that it stops like denying the effects of it, more or less. And I think it obviously gives some of it itself, but it turns down those receptors so you don't reject it.
I think the problem here is like if you accept that, then you're saying at some point something happens for no reason.
Yeah.
Dude, it's the collective unconscious. Jung was talking about this.
Well, yeah.
Then what impacted it? That goes against like
determinism?
No, that goes against like the general fucking...
I think the answer's somewhere in the middle.
Well, yeah, it's a area that a lot of people don't know a lot I
don't know anything about it, so I can't.
No, I mean, like even the drug itself, it's very new within the past 20 years, or at least understanding more or less what it is, because that type of drug has been around. It's in plants. It's in like all plants, but you have to like mix certain things to get it together. But I mean, even across millennia, civilizations, whatever, things that people see are about the same. Like people describe like themselves as dying, and then they go through some type of tube and they ascend to heaven. That's like, this is like what they describe seeing, and then they see beings there. But they also, when they're going there, you know how people talk about like the tree of life, and like there's purgatory, there's heaven, and then there's hell, and like the roots go through hell, and then there's like the base of the tree is on purgatory, and then there's heaven. They did, like, a lot of people when they take this drug, they describe seeing that. Even like I'm pretty sure it doesn't require them seeing that type of tree. I'm guessing that description has come from this drug. I don't know exactly how it causes people to see the exact same thing, but not exactly the same, like specifically the same. I'm sure there's a little bit of
it's just similar now.
Change, but it's anybody who describes it, like, it's so similar to the last story that you've heard.
Then I would argue that if there isn't really that much research on how or what happens, then maybe it's not really worth talking about it right now, just because it's like, if it's so experimental that not even the scientists, the neurologists study it, know what's going on.
Well, yeah, well, I'm
then
not saying
maybe
it's a new
just
drug that has never been used before.
No, yeah.
Because it's been along for a long time.
No, but the science behind it. The science behind it is just like then...
But, like, people describing what they've seen, obviously, there should definitely be some research that goes into it, but they're seeing something that isn't based off of anything that they've ever seen before.
Because like it's undeniable that some science is obviously happening, the chemical reactions and whatnot.
Yeah,
but if it's not entirely explained, then I think
I'm on your side. I don't believe in like some.
No, but I'm just saying that,
like that
at this point you can't argue it for determinism or you can't argue for free will. So it's just it's just something we should just ignore for now. And then like if there is a breakthrough, then maybe that's when we can include
I think
it.
like logically, what else is impacting those molecules?
It's somewhere
to change how you see what you saw.
And that's why I would argue with him. It's just that
there's definitely
it's just
research that goes into it, but it's a type of drug that's been around for millennia, and people describe seeing the same thing. Now, obviously, I'm sure the way that it interacts with your brain, your brain interacting with itself and what you can see, is probably just, I don't know, there's probably only to a certain point that you can take so much, just see the same thing, so it doesn't matter how much you take. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would just argue then that at this point it's just not, it shouldn't be used for anyone, because like I would still argue with Matt that it's still the physical, chemical properties that are happening, but like at the same time, I mean, since there's that weird, I wouldn't rule it out, but I would
Yeah.
still be a hard determinalist in that sense. But it's just like, I guess since we can't really know, right now it's like well, a lot of people on the right where it's sort of, what was the term? It was like about gun control. It was a lot of what if scenarios.
Yeah.
So it's just like theoretical. So if it's like still theoretical, I guess it's just not something we should talk about it now. But
Yeah.
like if you keep searching and you find something, then
Oh,
it's probably
yeah.
something to bring up. But
I'll definitely
mean,
bring it up. When
I
look
think I'm
into it
starting to
some more.
I think I'm starting to understand what you mean by determinalism.
Yeah, it's not saying
It's-
that like you don't have options. It's just saying that like those options that you perceive really because of the fact that your brain is in this universe, it can only come to one conclusion. Only one thing can happen.
I think the answer to that is somewhere in the middle. That determinalism can apply to like the molecular level. So obviously the same reactions are going to happen in the body if you take a tablet or something. It's going to dissolve in the same way. And then on a macro level, like if a meteor is going to hit Earth, there's nothing that's going to fucking stop that. And in the grand scheme of things, what we're doing here right now is not going to mean anything. It's not going to have a meaningful effect on the world.
Yeah, but like that's
But when it comes to the
I feel like it's more of a nihilist point of view.
when it comes to the
Existential.
intermediate areas, that's where all of the RNG of life can happen. And there is some sort of free will where you can choose whether or not to pick up that pad at any moment during this podcast.
Yeah, I disagree that consciousness and being able to make conscious decisions, self-aware decisions, I think that is not evidence of free will. I think that's just one example of the different processes that can happen within the brain. We are self-aware. We understand this stuff. We can store the information.
Yeah, that's on a mechanical, molecular level.
Yeah, but what other level are you proposing here? Because
The
right now I'm
the
talking
people
everything in the brain.
Yeah.
And people are the brain.
Yeah, people are the brain, but you're talking about the parts and not talking about the sum of the parts, which
Yeah, but like the rest of your body doesn't process any information other than sending,
yeah.
information up. And that's part of the brain's environment.
Yeah, but there's so many factors that come into play in our level of life because we're not like a little molecule, we're not an amoeba, and we're not,
Yeah, but like these
We're not
factors are
someone-
your environment. That's
Well-
my argument.
Yeah, but
Everything that
because there's so many variables and there's so many things to think about that you couldn't possibly have one set determined answer in every case.
I think inherently you have to, because so far in your entire existence, the existence of the universe, only one thing has happened.
Which is?
Everything that's happened.
That's on the macro scale.
Well, no,
That's-
no,
that-
he's
that's what I'm
talking
saying.
Every second, not second, because that's unfair. The
Moment.
smallest segment of time that you can think of
Plankton.
happened.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing else happened from the state before except that state. So one thing did happen.
Yeah.
So if you go forward and you say like we can't, like you can't say that only one thing can happen. Only one thing historically has ever happened from the previous.
you can
Okay,
say
so I have a question. What's
You can say that on a micro.
I
and
think
a
I
macro.
understand what he was saying when he said define free will. Regardless of determinalism, what is your definition of free will?
Mhm. Because that's how you're going to frame
A
determinism.
process that
like
doesn't happen within the brain.
Well, I think people describe free will in a different way.
Yeah. So my question.
And
would
I've been
be-
trying to make it clear that I don't think consciousness and conscious decisions accrue as free will, because all those processes in your brain are only affected by the tangible universe.
Yeah, that's
not
the-
tangible like ideas and shit
Yeah,
like
that's
that,
that's
but
the
like
micro.
I think, I don't know, what you're saying is that one thing has happened, right?
yeah.
One thing has ever happened. I decided to put this shirt on. We don't live in the universe that I didn't decide to put it on.
Yeah.
Both. I don't know how well that plays in like a multiverse theory, but
I think like that's like a very common like cop out for free will.
well, no, I'm not saying that.
It's not
I'm just
even
saying
proven anyway.
when people think of
Yeah,
free
exactly.
will, I think they're thinking of
I think they're just thinking of consciousness.
No,
But
I don't think they're thinking of that. It's just
Yeah,
the choice to
as
do
well,
that, because
yeah.
I don't think animals have like that type of consciousness that we have, but they also decide between what would be the best course of action.
Like, well, other animals are different in that they don't make choices per se. They just react to their environments. They have chemicals in their brain that tell them, hey, I need to eat. Hey, I need to sleep at, get this amount of sleep. I need to recharge my energy. They don't get to decide, oh, I'm going to go sleep over there. They are just completely reactionary creatures.
Exactly, but our difference is that we're self-aware.
The difference between them and us is that...
And we also have a concept of the future, too.
Is that we're not simply reacting to the environment. We have the choice of thinking, ruminating, having potential options to do things. If we're tired, we can either sleep on the bed or we can go sleep on the couch.
Yeah, but you choose one of those things happens. No,
yeah.
Both of them don't happen.
But the fact that there was even a choice in the first place makes us different.
Is it a choice if only one thing happens?
Yes, because you could have done you could have.
Then why didn't you?
Because I decided not to. Because I didn't feel like.
Because you didn't feel like it? That sounds like an emotion that happens entirely within the brain and is dependent entirely on the environment before that moment.
Yeah, and it's the variation of life that gives us options. We have so many varying factors, and we aren't solely reacting to our environment.
I think this is why I brought up the whole P.F. Skinner, the psychology thing, because it's like...
You can't tell if it's dead or alive.
No, Skinner's different. I think you're thinking of Schrodinger.
Skinner's box.
No, Schrodinger.
You're talking about
is that
Schrodinger's?
Like
Schrodinger's cat.
Skinner's like... No, you're fine. I looked up Skinner's box, and that's an actual band, but it's not... No, but P.F. Skinner, like... So he's a psychologist, and he is... I forgot what kind of psychology... No, behaviorist. Mm-hmm. And behaviorists essentially think that every behavior, or every action we do is predicated on a previous behavior, which I mentioned before. Yeah. And like, I'll just give like a personal example. And it's anecdotal, so it's not the greatest example, but it's like, all right, so you mentioned that if I'm tired, I could sleep over there or whatever, or I could do, I have an infinite amount of options, right?
Yeah, you can sleep on the floor.
So I'm tired all day, right? Mm-hmm. Like I had, plenty of sleep, but I'm still tired, and I could have taken a nap, but I didn't choose to take a nap.
Physically, you could have taken a nap.
I could have taken a nap, but I didn't do it because in the past I've always had bad experience with naps. So that's why I have a predisposition not to take naps.
Okay.
But it's not because of that moment that I decided not to take a nap, but it's because of something that happened before. And then, like, why did I have a bad experience
with decisions?
Right. On something that happened before.
But the key word there is decisions.
Yeah.
Well, I think decisions are conclusions made within the mind.
Yeah, but you still have to go through a thinking process, and you have to weigh your options before you come to a decision.
Yeah, and again, consciousness, the art of thinking and reasoning.
And I think that's where it comes, where it's like, you're not using information that's, because like, I could probably just discard that information about past experience with naps and just be like, okay, maybe I slept either too long, maybe I just was sleeping weirdly, but I didn't, right? And obviously, I can always keep that in mind, but...
Just the fact that you're thinking about anything means that you have a choice.
No, that's what I'm saying, man.
That's why I make
it's a process happening in your brain.
The comparison between objects and us, because objects... things just happen. The universe has cause and effects, and things happen, and they don't get to. The rock doesn't get to decide in space that it's going to hit it. It's
so you think cause and effect doesn't apply within the brain?
I think on a micromolecular scale or level, it's predetermined. On a macro scale, like planetary scale, or even like even planetary scale, or even continental scale, like environmental scale. Is predetermined, it's the intermediate stuff. It's the things in between that we are, because there's so much variation that we get to make decisions, and that's where the free will resides. There's no free will for molecules. There's no free will for the fucking planet. But we're the intermediate, where we're in between those two sizes of the universe.
But your thoughts are only a combination of molecules.
Let me try to. I want to see if I can bridge a gap here, possibly. Okay. Just let me know what you think.
All right.
So I'll give you a scenario. Say you're out in the wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you meet like a bear or something. You go into fight or flight mode. A lot of adrenaline pumps through your body, which also influences your decisions to a point where you start your choices. In your brain. Your choices start limiting. You're not just going to be like, I want to sit down and drink some tea or something. Like it heavily influences your choices, and there are obviously certain areas of the brain as well. But you're talking about like one actual event is viable, right?
Not viable, but it's just what happens. What happens in your brain isn't always the best thing that happens.
Yeah, well, I think what we're having the break is you're talking about there's one thing that has happened.
And there's one thing that will happen.
Yeah, there's one thing that will happen, but we still have the choice between what one thing will happen.
You get to pick the avenue of events that will happen.
Yeah, obviously, at the end of this, we're going to walk out the door, we're going to
But what is home. You picking? It's your brain making that process.
Yeah, but you're weighing potential options, and then you're eventually choosing an option that will eventually happen.
The brain is processing it with your reasoning, which developed entirely from your environment.
Yeah.
But how would you explain reasoning as a chemical reaction?
What the fuck? It happens in the brain. Well, what else is it?
Because everybody's reasoning is different.
But they all get it from some other outside source.
Because biological reasonings, like small, fucking tiny, microscopic changes in the brain, and the way you were raised. Small changes in your environment throughout your whole life. It's not just how you were raised from one point to another. It's your whole environment led up to that point. Certain things get stored in the brain. That's not random. And then you go from there. There's nothing else. What else is making your decision if it's not your brain?
It is your brain, but before you make any decision at all, you have to consider your options before you make a decision. That's
you don't necessarily have to consider your options.
Obviously, I'm not speaking,
but that's irrelevant.
I'm not speaking in every case. Like if you're out in the wild,
I think
a caveman out in the wild is still.
Miles, what causes you to think? What is it?
Yeah.
Is it you, some fourth dimensional you that's changing your brain? It's the state your brain is in.
Yeah.
And all those electrical pulses in the thought that you're having at that moment.
Yeah, that's physically what's happening.
Which makes you, your brain,
I think
particularly physically.
There's physically, and then there's the thoughts that go on in your head. Yes, they are technically electrical signals and whatnot, but we get to choose things. We get to think about things. We get to think abstractly. I think the abstractness is what allows us to have free will, because other animals don't get to think abstractly.
I think there might be
that's our break. I'm saying that all those processes happening in your brain.
I get that, yeah.
I know that you're saying that, and what I'm saying is all those things, everything comes down to cause and effect. There's nothing that happens in the brain that doesn't come down to cause and effect, and therefore, you saying that there's anything on a larger level that's happening not because of cause and effect doesn't make any sense. What happens in your brain has to happen because of something. And there's no because outside of the environment. There's just the environment the universe we're in.
So are there decisions to be made?
You can consciously, your brain can...
I'm not talking about witnessing what happens. I'm talking about, do you get to consciously decide anything?
Yeah, because you have a conscious, it's all processes.
Consciousness is being aware of what's happening. Do you get to consciously decide what happens?
What? No, because there is no you.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm asking. Is there any decisions to be made in consciousness?
I think, therefore,
yes.
No,
are there any decisions to be made?
It's just
because I think that's the one thing that you can control. You can control.
That's what I'm asking. Just
what I'm.
I know that physically that happens, but that's not the human element is that we have some sort of decisions to make. So my question for you would be, even us as human beings get to make decisions consciously?
It depends what you mean by
Because you can
decision.
consciously observe what's going on, the cause and effects, but do you get to decide what causes happen, and do you get to determine the effects of those causes? In any way, shape, or form.
And on that note, the
No,
question
like
for
it's
next
all
week.
happening within the brain.
So you don't get to make decisions.
I think your use of you here is circular logic because I'm arguing that there is no you, and you're saying you. That's
But
like, do you still hit Steph?
But
Miles?
we're the only. Yeah, but we get to imagine the possibilities
So I think
as human
what
beings.
he's thinking that you're saying is that you're just watching everything happen.
Yes,
There
because
is no you to do that.
but that's
that
what
doesn't
consciousness.
The
make sense.
individual,
That's
the
what- yeah,
individual,
that's
like
what
the individual
consciousness
mind.
is you.
Consciousness is
You.
you.
Consciousness
think
happens
therefore-
within the brain and is entirely dependent on cause and effect,
Yes.
which is only determined by the environment.
Yes.
There is nothing else at play. So if your brain is you
So
and
you-
it's only cause and effect,
So that means there's no decisions to be made. Which means
what do you mean by a decision?
I think what it, like
being able to
maybe-
think about something?
No, I think
Yes.
maybe for the individual, like he's using you obviously, and like
Yeah.
it's like pointing at you, but it's more like, what is that individual conscious with the body? Can it actually do anything?
are you just a passenger in this roller coaster of life, or do you get to
You mean like
deter-
your physical body?
you?
well,
attached
the
to
mind
the brain?
and the body, like just
yeah.
the whole
Does your
person.
mind get to send electrical signals to your body and change the outcome of the causes that you are observing?
Can it
or
influence the
within the
effects?
Can
brain?
it influence?
Can it influence anything that happens to you at all?
Can it
Or
influence?
are you just sitting here just
Can
watching
it-
everything that's happening?
Can it influence the causes that are that you can see happening, and change the effects, or do you get to everything's already predetermined because obviously because of cause and effect, and are you just a helpless passenger that can only watch?
No, you can act, but all your actions are based on the environment. And is
but
just the
cause and eff-
processes
there's
that
no
happen in
act-
your brain.
There's no acting in cause and effect. Cause and effect is just things
Something happens
happen.
and then something else happens.
Yes, so there would
Because
be
of
no
that.
acting.
So there's no influence in
There's
those
no-
decisions.
It
You don't get
depends
to-
what you
you-
mean by is me doing this like in action?
Yes,
I
because
think
you
you've
decided
to pick that up.
you decided
then
to
it
change.
It wasn't a cause. I don't think something forced you to do that.
Well, the cause was that you guys
The
were
cause
was-
debating.
Yeah,
my
obviously there's
brain.
like something in your brain, but
There's
you
no-
have like it.
There's
You
no-
had to start that.
What is me?
You're conscious.
Your
My
consciousness.
conscious?
You
So
are
the
your
section of my brain,
You are your consciousness.
the physical section of my brain that's sent to another part of the brain
The
to say, move the arm.
Yes. You're choosing to.
No, but I mean, there's more to it than just a physical action. It's also the mental.
That's why I make the comparison to objects, because objects don't get to
Decide what.
decide
happens.
what happens.
No, but they can
Objects-
still make processes.
they
like
don't.
The computer can.
They don't. They just are, and they just do things because of cause and effect. We're not entirely affected by the cause and effects.
Wait, why are we answering this question that I thought we already dealt with before?
Because
We talked about it before, but
Oh, we never actually.
I think
Never-
it
never
definitely
actually-
required us to go more in depth.
Yeah.
And I think
it's. I understand what you're saying.
the argument with the computer is that we had to.
We had
make
to
this happen.
We had to decide to make that exist.
It's the computer's environment.
That's
Yeah.
not a conscious thing.
What?
Well, it's not just the computer's environment,
what-
but it's
no,
Sorry.
It doesn't have to be conscious to have an
But we
environment.
decided to make it. Cause and effect didn't make us.
No, that's circular logic. You're saying we decided something, therefore we can make decisions.
Yes. Because you have to think about the options before you decide to do something. Decisions are the result of potential options.
And where does this process happen? I
think
don't
that that's also
I
circular
don't get
logic,
it.
too. I think there's definitely a break somewhere. It's just
I
we're
get what
not
you're saying.
understanding
If
both
everything
sides.
is
Everything's cause
Everything's
and
pre-
effect, therefore nothing else affects it.
it's
Therefore,
either everything is predetermined and you don't get to decide everything, or we get to actually make changes to our
No,
environment.
Determinism doesn't mean that you can't think or be conscious.
Yeah, but you don't get to decide what happens in the cause and effect part.
Okay, consciousness.
Consciousness is being aware of your environment. That's the official definition.
Yeah.
So,
Wait, you guys should probably
yeah.
agree on what the definition of the terms you guys are using
Yeah,
and
okay.
to what extent, like,
Okay.
because like, so what's your
So what is
Consciousness is anything that is happening in your brain that, like you're saying, relates to the environment.
You get to observe the environment. You are aware of what's happening to you.
So was that like a technical definition of consciousness?
I get,
Is
yeah.
that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
It's-
you as a being are able to be aware of what's happening to you.
Mhm.
That's what consciousness is. So to say that,
The brain can process
Yes.
the environment.
the brain can process the fact that it is a being,
So
and it can decide
so
to move around
the brain can process the
and
environment.
react accordingly to things.
Okay.
It can choose to. It's not a victim of the environment
or its impulses.
or its impulses.
So
Deer, unfortunately, don't get to choose.
So consciousness.
Deer are entirely reactionary in terms of them versus us. They don't get to decide where to sit down and eat. They just do. So if they're hungry, they just go eat. They don't sit there and go, which tree do I want? They don't get to. They don't have the thought process to decide which tree they want to
No,
go eat at.
obviously we do, and this whole time I haven't been arguing that. I'm saying that's happening in the brain can
Yeah.
only be it can only happen through cause and effect.
Yeah, but then the difference between animals and us is that we get to decide, and we get to make decisions, and we get to shape our environment, and we get to change things.
And again, like
And yes, that happens because of
don't-
cause and effect, but we get to, in the abstract, think about potential options.
and all those
I think maybe this is something we should just like get back to, just because like it feels like you guys are just kind of saying the same thing
Yeah.
over
I
and
know
over
we
again.
are.
It's
And
definitely
it's
Yeah.
just like
forth
there's
over and
no,
over again.
it's just we're at an impasse. So I
It-
think maybe it's just something we
I
should
think
think
we
about.
are.
Maybe
Yeah.
do more research on individually, and then just come back to some other time.
I mean, I think
Not-
the,
not
I
even
think
on the
the I think
podcast,
the
I just-
bridge would be consciousness. I think that's the bridge that we need to establish to gain understanding. Because what you're saying is that there's no consciousness.
No. I keep saying that that's not what I'm saying. Consciousness can exist in a deterministic sense because it's processes that happen inside the mind. So all those brain synapses, everything,
Okay.
it's physical, it's in this world,
Yeah.
and it's like the
But it has a sense of self.
No, I think maybe you guys are right about what is consciousness. Like the
Consciousness
words are
has-
differently, but you're
No,
essentially
he's
saying
talking
that there
about
is
it
a
just
consciousness.
being a mechanical,
it's
physical
just a
thing.
physical mechanical process.
but that's not what consciousness is. It's a sense of self.
Well, I think what he might
In
be saying is
relation to
that
what? What
the
is
sense of
sense of
self
self?
is a result of those
a
chemical.
reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
So-
type of
But he's skipping
formation in your
the
brain.
he's skipping the result of what he's talking about.
which is
That
sense
even
of
though all
self.
those chemical reactions and synapses are happening, the end result is you get to be aware of what's going on. A sense of self. It means that I know that I'm me. Versus just being an object in the world and just reacting as things are thrown at me.
I see what you're saying. And while I think I see where the impasse is,
Yeah. It's
I'm done.
okay. All right. I think consciousness is, whenever we get back to that, that'll be the bridge. I think.
Sure.
Any thoughts?
Anything
you
to
guys?
end it.
You guys? Anything to
I
add?
think we should just try to wrap it up here. Okay.
Okay.
Are we gonna think of questions, or are we gonna just continue this debate?
Yeah, we can come up with some questions. You guys can think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm always bad at this. I don't know what the questions.
I just
Sorry,
I'm
if
trying
I
to
pissed you off,
mediate
Matt.
this argument. I'm trying to find out
Yeah, I'm
where
still on
exactly you're not seeing what he's saying,
No, I see
and
what
you're
he's
not
saying.
seeing what he's saying, or
I
at
s-
least not understanding it in a cohabitable sense.
So, like, what I'm not understanding is what a thought is.
See,
if
that's
it's
something that
not.
we don't even understand as people.
That's something
we don't
that
understand
that's
what
something that
thought is. It's not a tangible thing.
But since like
thoughts are not tangible, not physical, in a sense. They're abstract.
yeah, but then where do they happen?
Dude,
That's
I
where
don't
Descartes
get. I don't
comes
get
in,
like
though.
where they would
Like
come
literally,
from.
no, that's literally where Descartes
Yeah,
comes in, because he's
it's
like
not
substance
physical.
dualism.
But yeah, it's a reaction in your brain, but you're not.
seeing-
No, but what I would argue for him is that because we can all agree that an idea, at least, or a thought, whatever, it starts with the brain. Obviously, the synapses
But I think-
firing and whatnot.
yeah,
there's
But
an
the
end-
thing is that we imagine a thing that doesn't. So I'm gonna say cupcake. An image
Yeah.
of a cupcake probably came to your mind.
Yep.
We all probably thought of some different type of cupcake, but it's still a cupcake. So you're right in the sense that there's no cupcake in this room. There's no cupcake in front of you.
Yep.
But the image still appeared, and the reason why the image still appeared is because your brain fired the same way that an actual physical cupcake, like the image of an actual physical cupcake, it would have
The
fired the same
recording of the
synapses.
synapses in your brain.
Right.
shot
It
off.
would have been similar, and
for
that's
a
why you
cupcake.
imagine a cupcake.
Yeah, but
So, it's not
still
a-
it's still the
It's not a
Like-
real cupcake,
I would
and it's not.
I'd say
like
this argument, well, not argument. I'd say this debate is at an impasse, at least the way I see it.
Yeah.
Matt's putting Matt. Imagine 2 + 2 = 4. The way I see it is Matt is at 2 + 2 =, and then he stopped before what the end result of what his thought is.
There is no end result, man.
That,
Like my whole argument is everything is cause and effect.
That's how I view it, at least.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like.
I don't know if you guys can think that abstractly. At least how
Because I'm
I'm
trying to
thinking.
think of it, but it's like, because I'm still on like Matt's side with the
'Cause-
determinism, because it's just like,
Because it does physically.
Nothing else
Yeah, okay,
makes
so it
sense.
It does physically.
No, okay,
happen.
so let me
Go
think
for
of
it.
something. So, what I understand that the consciousness is the bridge between what you both are thinking, but I don't think it's just being implemented properly.
Mhm.
So, any other animal besides a human is not conscious. They don't have that self-aware sense.
Not
They're
to our
purely
degree.
That we can tell, yeah.
Yeah, to a sense. They're purely reaction. They have no sense
Right.
of the future. They can't
Yeah.
calculate ahead of time. They're purely reaction.
it's just survival.
They're hungry, they go eat.
They don't get to think.
Where's my train of thought here? This is a big thought to grasp.
They're just completely reactionary.
I mean, we're not in disagreement with that,
Yeah.
because we're
Yeah,
dealing
yeah,
with
no,
humans.
no.
We're dealing with humans, not
Yeah.
necessarily, the pet dog, the pet cat.
So what I was trying to get at is, and it's the bridge because there's a cause, like say something feels hungry, and then the effect is they go get food of an animal that's not conscious, right? Or they have an inclination to procreate, they go procreate.
It's purely.
What humans have is something in between there. They have the cause, I feel hungry. They think about, what am I going to eat? When am I going to go eat? Could I actually go do something else instead? I have something to do in that spare time.
Okay.
And then they move forward based on that thought.
Okay.
And this thought right here is free will.
Yes.
That's where I think that he's saying.
Yeah, the fact that you're even having thoughts is the free will.
Yeah, obviously the one thing that happens after that happens.
Yep.
There's no both, I eat. I mean, like obviously you could eat and do something else at the same time, but you're not automatically in a superposition of one thought or another.
Right.
You consider your thoughts here, and then you
Make a decision.
make a decision based on those calculations.
Okay.
Obviously not like numbers or whatever, but
But abstract thoughts.
abstract thoughts.
I see
yes.
that point.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing what some, at least one determinalist would argue is that, so the thought in between
Mhm.
and the formation of those thoughts, those are caused by something in the past. So like you're saying, like
in
something
the
created
past
your
or something
reasoning.
in your brain doing that as well.
Right. Like
Yeah.
I would say that like it's like, so if you're thinking about, let's just say something drastic like, okay, I have a gun, should I kill someone? And then you decide to kill someone. Obviously not you guys
Yeah.
personally, but it's like some
Yeah.
psychopath. And then it's just like, so what caused his reasoning to choose that? I mean, yes, he's a psychopath, but then it's like, okay, let's see. his parents, who he didn't have a choice in deciding,
Yep.
they were also psychotic.
Yeah.
And he's only ever been given, and he's only been ever groomed to go for books that are, like the Unabomber sort of thing. And I guess that's a very specific, and it's not universal.
Groomed his whole life to lead up to this one
Right.
point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, if he's been groomed.
See, yeah, I
I
do understand that. But
and that's a very specific, and it's not universal, so that's why it's not the best argument for it. But then it's just like applied broadly, and it's sort of like, it's not like when you're making a rational choice, you're thinking of every single little impact. You're just thinking of the stuff that comes to your mind, and because of
that's a reaction
the stuff that
of
comes
the cause. Right.
So all of the stuff that comes to your mind is the stuff that's most important to you, and I think you could probably argue that you might not have even had a choice in that, because you never had a choice on who your family is.
Yeah.
And because they determine so much, they determine not your entire worldview, because I'm not the hardest, predeterminalist, but it's just like, you see it all the time where like people resemble their families in a sense. You can always break away, be the black sheep, but there might be another reason that's not even that person's reason. Maybe they just had a friend who was another black sheep, and then that like you get this whole cobweb, and it's just like harder to go. But
there's a lot of potential options that could happen.
Okay, so I have something else to put in there as well. So I mean, we do have this middle point.
Yeah.
But I think it's it's kind of hard. Okay, so what I'm thinking is, say you have a grown wolf, whatever, what have you, cheetah. Like there are videos of cheetahs who are in physical danger, right? They're in areas where they're being hunted down by hyenas or
they're predators.
Dangerous
or whatever.
They see a cub or something, or they see an animal from a different species that's just like a baby. And instead of just being purely reactionary to the threat,
right?
The main thing, they also take in consideration that, like, we should grabs that, saves that, and takes it with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just, it's definitely a reaction to seeing both of those things at the same time. So it takes in consideration both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's definitely like a reaction in the brain, a chemical reaction and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Technically, it's all a reaction. It's just one reaction.
So what if consciousness is just the ability to see that process happening and actually understand it?
Well, because I think
I'm not talking for free will per se, but consciousness is, instead of you making those decisions, you're just actually aware of those decisions happening in your brain instead.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So but you could be in the exact same position, like put a human in the same position of that cheetah. They see the threat, but they also see a cub.
Right.
And they take into both of those consideration. They're like, okay, I grab the cub, and then I go.
Yeah.
It's not just purely, obviously some people might just run.
Right, obviously.
But what if consciousness is just the simple awareness of that happening?
Okay. And I don't think that's what, I think maybe we're addressing two different problems, and that's probably why there's so much confusion.
I'm talking about
but
in
I do
favor
agree with
of
that,
determinalism. Like, consciousness is simply seeing or being able to know that those reactions are happening, but you don't necessarily have an influence on them.
Yeah, and even that, like, being able to, like, think that and all that things, it's also happening in the brain.
Yeah, it's all happening in the brain. So I think
effect.
consciousness is just you being aware in some way of those things happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So what about the abstract?
I agree.
Well, I would still
abstract thought. Well,
abstract thoughts that.
Well,
I could think about titties right now.
Okay, well,
you've seen them
like
before.
what I heard,
you could say that, but that's. Obviously now I'm thinking about it because you said it.
Yeah,
but that's a reaction to the environment as well. But you could say that you could think about titties right now, but that's a reaction to you trying to further your point.
Yeah, but I'm choosing to think about that.
Because the way I saw
No,
it,
you didn't.
Are you reacting to what
said.
he's saying to further your point instead?
Like, did you
Do you see what I'm
purposely?
saying?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's kind
but-
of the example with the picking up the pad,
Yeah,
where it's just like
he's
it was
reacting
only
to what
done
you're saying to
for
further
that.
a point to get somewhere in the future, per se.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like the way well, the thing that I read and what made sense to me is that because like thoughts, the way you guys see it, is intangible. Think of it as like the phantasms made in the brain. Because they're made in the brain, they then are tied to the physical realm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, they're extensions of the physical, not necessarily two separate objects. Like the thought is not its own thing. Obviously, it's its own noun, right? But grammatically, but physically,
It exists in this universe.
it's tied to the physical brain.
Okay.
It's kind of like I'm going to use computers again, but only to demonstrate
All right.
like why that means that. So we can have this computer, right? And it can be outputting that image, and that can be kind of considered a thought. If we unplug that monitor, that image is still being output. We could plug it into something that instead interprets that data instead of just shows it, like for us. So it can be plugged into another computer that processes what that image would be and then uses that information to come to conclusions and uses those conclusions to come to new conclusions if it knows how it can affect that data.
Okay.
So
I could plug this computer into my computer and it could see this, see that there's a red X in the top right that it learned that means close the window. And if the goal that it has assigned is to do something that would require the window being closed, it'll interpret that and close it.
Okay.
And that can all happen without that image physically existing the way that we would normally think it is.
Mm-hmm.
In
Alright.
reality, it's a bunch of electrical
Signals.
yeah.
Okay.
But it still exists.
it's still physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think the only argument that we were making against this is that this would not be here without human interaction. This would not be on unless I press the power button. There would not be power without...
Yeah, but
But there's a
wouldn't be
reason
here.
for that human interaction, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I
Yeah,
get
but
that. What
then-
I'm just saying is that this doesn't compute without the human interaction. You know,
Right.
It wasn't there, first of all, without the human interaction. Obviously, I'm still for your cause and effect thing. It's just...
Well, that's
this
the computer's
wouldn't be here without
the computer's there
us.
because
You know, it's not putting up this image.
Because of its own
through
volition.
Or
Yeah,
like
it doesn't
it's
have
not
its
its own
own
entity
cause.
that reacts
Right.
by itself. We have set it up to react in
Yeah.
specific ways.
However, if we left it now, it will react to things
Yeah.
and do certain things that it was programmed to, much like our brain.
Yeah, but it
That
was
is
programmed by
can't-
us. So I
Yeah.
guess you consider us its environment.
Exactly.
It's an extension
Yeah.
of our selves,
Yeah.
our
Other-
physical selves.
And then,
Yeah.
like us, it would be more like, us, like our brain developing over time physically, and then also any information stored. So,
Yeah, okay.
which changes our reasoning over time.
okay.
So I think it definitely helps
Um,
your point that you're putting across. It's just different because it's an inanimate object, you know?
Yeah. So
And it
it's just
obviously doesn't react without our first input into this, but we don't react without the first
Environmental stimuli.
environment.
It's just stimuli. Like,
Mhm.
what's making that whir up and act the way it is with it, the processing power that it has,
Mhm.
is stimuli.
Yeah,
Same thing with us.
like zeros and ones, but we assign that
Yeah.
meaning to the zeros
And
and
like
ones
the-
in a certain...
The problem
setup.
that like sucks is like, I don't know, like even if you did subscribe to determinism, like it doesn't mean that nothing matters or any of that things, because like you still think, like your brain still processes the environment around you,
yeah.
and you still can have goals that happens because of that, because of things that make you feel good, meaning like the chemical reactions in your brain, serotonin and all that.
Yeah.
And then your brain goes, this causes something that is good for me, so I will try to make it happen again. And because I can interpret the world through processes of, identifying something, relating it to prior knowledge, which I got from my environment, and knowing how that interacts with the rest of my environment from my previous knowledge of how I've seen similar things react in the environment,
Yeah.
you can use all that information to try to get more positive feelings.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you define as good though? Just a
Yeah,
physical reaction in
just the
mind
reactions
that's
in
just
the
good
mind.
for you,
Yeah,
because
whatever like
I think-
biologically would.
yeah,
would
but I
include.
think that something that you can put against that in theory, I'm still like, for the cause and effect thing,
Mm-hmm.
is say you have a drug addiction and your body's telling that you need this,
Mhm.
but there's part of you that says no and you reject it, even though it may be bad for you immediately in the short term. And I think the consciousness part is your ability to perceive the future, like you can just
Yeah.
give-
Well, that's
you-
understanding the environment.
yeah, I mean, you can give like obviously I'm not like promoting this or anything, but if you made an animal addicted to a drug, it would go to that drug because it was told that by its brain that it was good for him. And I think the consciousness part is being able to perceive the future for humans, so that we can decide for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
the key word there would be deciding.
Yeah,
Versus-
we're deciding for the
versus
future.
just
It's a cause and effect thing,
Versus
but we can
purely.
think about the future.
Yeah. Versus purely cause and effect.
And that's kind
Yeah.
of where
That-
I've
that-
gotten
that-
furthest.
Yeah, that's where it.
I don't know. To that, I would
That's
still
like that.
say,
I think
like,
that's why we say consciousness is the bridge here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I just
It's-
think
it's
like
tough.
your reasoning, if it's not based on all the stimuli that comes into your brain, along with your biological composition, I don't understand what else could physically impact the brain that is in your head, outside of stimuli, which is entirely the environment,
Mhm.
including biological development and things like that, and accidents like getting hit in the head.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely it's stimuli for sure, and I
Yeah,
think that unless we
We're not disputing that, but what I guess what would make us different from an inanimate object?
it was,
And
well,
what
I
would
mean,
make us
what
would make
I
us
think we should say more what makes us different from
other
con-
animals?
like not conscious beings, but other living things.
Yeah. Why are we so special that we can think of hypotheticals, whereas other conscious
And I think
beings
that's like
can't?
kind of where religion came in to give us like some higher meaning for it, but it's just we have a bigger brain.
And the thing
Yeah.
about religion is that it's entirely based on free will, because obviously
Well, they
no, there's-
not really.
came up with
no, because like if you unless you
It's like
unless you
God's
believe in
divine
predestination,
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Which,
they
which
have-
but
it
it's just
does
like-
preach. It does tell you, and
Well, I mean,
God
if it's
has a
a-
plan for you, and But
yeah.
then they also say that you can defer from that plan.
oh, okay, but
And
that's
you-
where the
but you
free
go to
will
hell,
comes from, though.
you know,
Yeah,
you
no,
go
that's
to
what I'm
sleep.
saying though, because it's just like I could be already he's probably gonna go to
Yeah.
heaven, but then I decided to just sin.
God
And obviously I
determined-
don't know anything because obviously God is
Mm-hmm.
unknowable, all that stuff, right? But then it's just like I don't know, like it'd be a whole nother discussion, so we probably
Yeah.
shouldn't dwell on
Yeah,
that. But
yeah, I mean, that's
it's just like an idea that brought up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a type of conversation or argument that's been around for a lot longer than.
Yeah.
I just have one
Go for it.
kind of concept. So like, I'm trying to get like a better grasp of what you guys are saying,
That's what I thought.
because like, when I think about what you guys are saying, I'm thinking about how it would kind of like go against what I kind of like the cause and effect thing. I'm trying to see like how that would work.
Mm-hmm.
But when you guys are saying things like being able to like process things of the future and things like that,
Perceive the future.
well, like we can't
You-
see
you
the
can-
future.
no,
We
like
see,
perceive, like you can predict the future. You can say,
yeah, we
okay,
can
if
say
I
what
do
we
these types of
think.
things, this is
Might
most
be.
likely,
Yeah.
like the highest probability to happen.
Yeah, like using the information that we have inside our brain, we can use that
But that, yeah,
to
obviously
run
that's-
basically a simulation.
that's the cause and effect. Obviously, it's based on what
Yeah.
we know now and what could possibly happen.
Yeah,
And you
but
come up
so
to multiple conclusions then.
Mm-hmm.
well, no, you can run. It's basically like running a simulation in your mind and
Yeah.
going, this has a high probability of happening, this has a medium probability of happening, this has a low probability of happening.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's never those three, and you don't think of it as a probability,
But it's.
but really that's kind of what you're coming to.
It is.
So when you do that, it's like
It's-
we can use computers to run simulations, and while they're not as all-encompassing,
Yeah.
if we had a computer that could theoretically process the effects of that lamp to this room,
Mm-hmm.
it could predict where the light floods and exactly how it lands,
Yeah.
but so can we.
Yeah.
So that's not exactly a free will component. If it could be processed by something else,
Yeah.
you know, that would be like saying that the computer has free will. We have that just
What-
kind of on steroids,
that's
but it's
just-
the same thing. It's just a lot of it.
Yeah. I mean, they're going for more like computers are more. You put in an input and it gives you an output, and that's it.
Well, I think
Oh,
also
that's what computers
part
are
of the
designed
thing
to
is
do.
like if
On a
we're
base level.
able to make AI that can think of itself, think for itself.
Yeah.
It doesn't need any input and it can build on itself and its past
Then.
transgressions, then it would just be purely a biological thing. I mean,
What?
obviously, all of it is a biological thing, but it's something.
Talking about the
else.
AI, right?
Well, like,
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
not
Not like
It's
mechanical. Whatever goes into the
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah. So like, if I had a computer that could, it has a bunch of sensors. Let's say it has like an optical sensor, maybe like a heat sensor, and things like that. And then we'll give it maybe even an animal nature, to where we tell it what is bad for it. So like if the temperature goes above 100 degrees Celsius, that's bad for the computer.
Yeah.
And then we also tell the computer that it can turn something on or off.
Okay.
That something will be a fan pointing at the computer.
Mm-hmm.
If the computer senses the temperature go up, we can have the computer set to, as reactionary, turn the fan on.
Yeah.
But it can also see the fan with the sensors. Let's say it has cameras as well.
Cool.
It can see the fan turn on, and then it can process that that box is a computer.
Yeah.
That is an LED. That color is what's considered red,
Mm-hmm.
and all these other things, and it can go, the temperature is rising, that is bad for this computer.
Yep.
I will turn the fan on. So then it turns the fan
Yep.
on, and it can see that,
Yeah.
and it can also understand that is a fan, the fan has been turned on.
Yeah.
And then before it even does that, it can go, if I turn the fan on, how will that affect this? And let's say it can understand the movement of air. It will understand and can even run a simulation, if it's a powerful enough computer,
Cool.
of how that airflow will affect it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering how that's different.
Than us.
Yeah. If it can,
Then.
if processes go on that come to a conclusion about the environment around it,
Okay.
like, it might be rudimentary,
Yeah.
but if we had a fucking metric shit ton of these somehow, or we could put the processing power in there to run it.
Yeah.
Because right now, like, one of the limitations would be processing power.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
Probably also manpower as well, because we would have to have someone come up with, you know, simulations that could run that fast
Mhm.
during that time.
Yeah.
It'd just be a shit ton of simulations that ran to predict as most accurately as it could
Okay.
1 minute into the future, or like even like 10 seconds into the future.
Now-
And then it could also even run theoretical things of however long in the future, given knowledge that
Yeah.
we have and we know.
Now, my
What's
question
important?
would be:
Is that the acting?
what's the difference between that and us?
That's what I'm saying.
And my answer would be feelings. Because ultimately,
Yeah,
what
'cause I
that
don't think we mentally run on probability.
ultimately
I
the
mean,
computer.
I think
Computer-
it's like
okay.
how intense of a feeling. We don't run
It's-
on numbers. We run.
Yeah,
on
it's not a
feelings.
number,
And
but
it's,
like,
it can be weighed generally the same thing, but they still are different
Yeah,
processes
the-
in and of themselves.
The problem with AI right now is that it doesn't have the human element.
which is
In
feelings.
computers only take inputs and
Well, yeah, they deal
output.
with yeses and nos.
They do
Like, if
inputs and
it's-
outputs.
It's
and
no until, like the fan you were talking about, it's no until it gets up to that point, then it says yes.
Yeah,
It turns on.
and
It
that's
doesn't
it.
know that it's a fan.
That's
Well,
it.
I mean,
It can't
I was
acknowledge
saying
that. It's
it-
just
it
saying,
can.
like, this thing, what's ever connected to this power output that's being, like, obviously it's probably stopped. I don't know exactly how the circuitry works, but it's like yes or no, and then at that point when it says yes, this thing turns on, and then that starts going.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it can understand that that's a fan, and it can understand how fans affect its environment.
Are you talking hypothetically, or
No, it can. If you set up a camera
Yeah, but
with imaging, it
Mhm.
could detect that as a fan. It could detect if the fan is on or off. If it's a high-speed camera, it could detect exactly how fast it's running.
No, but the fan
Um,
itself, is that what you guys are asking? If the fan itself can determine if it's...
I think they were saying the computer doesn't know that
computer.
it's a fan.
Oh, it's
the computer
but-
doesn't know that
yeah,
it's a
I
computer.
don't think it knows necessarily it's a fan. It's like this object running at this.
No, I'm saying you can make a program where that computer is hooked up to a camera,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and
and the camera, you know,
detects that object.
yeah.
Obviously, it's not taking on our specific name for fan.
yeah.
But-
It's not. The computer isn't conscious of itself. It just is able to take inputs and outputs, and that's it.
Wasn't consciousness? Didn't she say consciousness was understanding the environment?
Being aware and making decisions.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's aware that the
Now-
temperature raised, and it's aware that there's a fan there, and it's
Yeah.
aware of what a fan is and what a fan can do, and it's aware that it can turn it on and off.
Mm-hmm.
And when it detects that the temperature
It's aware that
went
it
up-
can turn it on and off, but it can only do it at a certain point. It's only turned on or off at that
There's-
certain point.
And
I think the consciousness is you can turn it off whenever you want.
you know,
Well,
there's,
yeah, but why would you want? Like,
there's-
there's a want. That's
yeah,
a
well,
want.
there's no want. It's
Yes,
just
it's just a
doing.
yes or no.
It's just
Is
doing.
it at this point? Turn on. Is it
Okay,
not?
well then
No.
you could also have it to turn on if the temperature is 23 degrees and today is Wednesday.
Yeah, but that's
Okay,
a
but
set
that's
thing.
a preset thing. Like I can turn on a fan whenever I want. I can turn this off or on.
Yeah, but like
We're
that's what I'm
not
saying. You
preset.
wanted it. I'm giving it a want.
No, I said I can. I didn't say I want to. I can
We
just
as-
turn it off.
Yeah, you said
Right.
whenever I want, so that's dependent on you wanting.
We as but want is
Yeah,
a
but
human
nothing.
element.
I'm not presetting when I.
What
can
makes it a
set
human element? Just
We're not
'cause-
preset to wake up at 9:01 a.m. every single day on the dot.
Okay,
we-
that's totally different.
Yeah, well, that's compared to a computer, which is set to turn on at this time, or is set to turn on the fan at this number.
I
When
think
this
it-
number,
it would-
like you're looking at
it's-
too small of an area. Like
It
it
has-
could be a large number of processes
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely.
But
But
it's-
everything has to, in
in-
terms of computers, it has to have a preset for a yes or no.
Yeah, there has to be parameters that it has to abide by strictly, versus us, which we can do whatever we would like within the cause and
makes
effect
sense.
of our environments.
That
This
makes sense.
computer is solely only doing what it's supposed to do, taking inputs and outputs, and they're sending out outputs, and that's it.
Yeah, but what
There's
we
no-
like is what makes the serotonin in our brain rise.
Yeah.
So if we had that computer hooked up to a thermometer, basically put a label over it that says serotonin,
Okay.
and when it goes up, it perceives that as like something beneficial.
Uh huh. But it
But
what
it,
it,
what
what
it
it
means
perceives
it
is
will absolutely do it at that point.
what it's perceived
For like say,
Go ahead.
say for people like you're eating, and animals only eat until they're satisfied. We can eat as much as we want. Like it's no, obviously there should be like, at least internally, there's some type of preset thing, but we can decide to just keep going.
We can override
Yeah, we can override our own internal.
our own molecular structure, and we
And
can.
the only reason why you would do that is to increase serotonin
Yeah, but we're able
or
to.
to protect yourself.
But we're
Like,
the
I'm
human
sure there's
element is we're
another-
able to override our parameters, whereas a computer can only abide by the parameters solely.
And the only times you would ever do that is if it would
we wanna
be
eat more
beneficial
food.
for you.
If we want to eat more, that's not true at all. People overeat all the time.
Yeah,
when
because
their
they,
stomach says,
not beneficial for the body and their health, but based
Yeah,
on
but for their mind, it can say, yes, keep going, because that's what we like. But you
Versus-
can also perceive that it's bad for you and we shouldn't do it, so you can like it, but then you can say no.
yeah, there's there's nuance and conflict going on in the body, and a computer can't have any conflict like that. It just does input and output. That's it. No feelings. You can't override anything. If it does, it breaks.
I mean, yeah, you can set it up to override at a certain point if something happens, but that's also a yes or no, an absolute or no.
That's still a parameter.
I guess my argument is like, that's what we do inside our brain. It's just a series of like yes or no's. It's like, do I want to pick that up?
Want.
Well, if we back up,
yeah.
Can I move my arm? Yes. Would picking that up benefit me in any way? And then it would start processing the simulations of like how that could benefit me, and not full-on simulations like you would consider a computer, but just the concept, because I can understand this is a notepad. What might I need a notepad for? It's also an object. I might want to look underneath it, and that want might be derived entirely from the like need to know the information of what's underneath here to increase my serotonin by calling the Pizza Hut number that's on the back of that.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what I say. That's the human conscious element.
Yeah. Okay. So
whereas, you know, like asteroids out in the middle of space are only determined by cause and effect.
Yeah, but there's no processes going on there.
But we as humans get to decide things and consider things.
I see it as just a shit ton of processes like that. And like the variance between computers and us, and like how computers would always be perfect, I believe are most likely biological. Because our brains weren't like made in a factory to be like perfect. Like and the synapses just work similarly but differently to like on and off.
Yeah.
Like it's, you know, it's like in states. I believe it's just processes very similar to a computer that are all happening in your brain.
Yeah. I mean, you just...
So like this like human element you're talking about deciding, it's the processes of, you know, like the stimuli of seeing something and then recall. Okay. So going like, what might that be based on similar things in my past environment that I've seen or read about or learned somehow through my environment, because that's the only way like you learn anything.
Yeah.
At least anything new. You can come to new conclusions, but like, so like I would do that process, and then I would do a process of like, what is my current goal, or do I need to create a new goal? And then if I need to create a new goal, it would be determined on like what I saw, like my perception of the environment, and how that would impact me, because, you know, the brain processes that like this is what it controls and this is the environment it's in. Yeah. So I don't know, I just see it as the same thing, just on like a rapidly larger scale, but it's all within the brain, but it's all still cause and effect, reliant completely on the environment. Yeah. And the physical composition of your brain, including where all the synapses are and like if they're firing in that moment or not.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well we were supposed to end this like
an hour ago.
That's okay. All right. Were you thinking of a question while you're sitting here doing nothing?
No.
Yeah.
Is there a pencil somewhere?
Well. Let me see. Here's my homework for you.
I think you both should.
What is the difference between humans and your computer simulation that you just set up? And what's the difference between us and other animals? That would be my question for next podcast.
I believe I touched on that, but
what are the differences? Because you've talked about similarities, but they don't go across universally.
It's just a difference in processing power. We can process more due to the biological compositions of our brains.
We can process more, and we can process it differently as well.
Yeah. Because we process it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, we're not going to get into it. That would be my question. What's the difference between us
That's more like a science question.
Humans.
I think
and
So, like,
there are the processes that you're talking about, a cause and effect, but I think there are more steps in between for humans, just because we have that conscious element.
yeah. There's differences.
Yeah. I mean, like I agree, and I agree that like we can have the other steps, but I would even argue that like those steps we're not born with, and we learn through the environment. You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So questions? Any big philosophy questions? Philosophy.
We got in deep. Got in deep this podcast.
How
Matt, I just want you to know, I love
Fuck
you.
you. I knew you were gonna say that. I love you too, Miles. Aww. When you said I love you back to Ben in the car, it made me cry.
I do love him too.
Alright,
What you got, Aaron?
what can we as humans do to keep up with AI? Advanced AI.
That's an
You
interesting.
mean like
Yeah.
once they get advanced?
I guess before and after we could do.
Oh, for sure.
Whichever.
Okay.
Oh,
So what are you saying? What can we do?
yeah. Because I don't think I think we can all agree that AI is just gonna advance. We have
Oh.
no.
Yeah, AI is limitless.
Yeah, like we aren't gonna be able to just stop it.
Yeah,
It is
because once
already
it
on
can
that track.
improve upon itself, it's not going to need us.
So I'm guessing it's just like, what can we do to keep up then?
Yeah. That's a pretty good question.
Yeah.
Y'all got something?
God, it is hot in this room.
We were getting heated.
Kind of take off
all the
All
talk
that
is
breath, yeah.
all the talk has warmed up this room. Pretty sweaty
I
here.
feel like we could talk about postmodernism some more if you want to like continue that next time. We didn't
You
really
mean-
talk
and
about
how
it.
we
You mean talking about postmodernism?
Yeah.
At all?
We touched on it, but I think we could talk about it. some
Yeah,
more
we
if
could
you want.
elaborate
Or
on it more.
Marxism.
Continue.
Like that.
I will try and not
Just general.
derail.
Like my struggle when I was
It's
trying
okay,
to
man.
research
We always do that
postmodernism was
anyway.
like the variety of definitions and like concepts, kind of like there were the few like
you can
influential
come up like
ones.
you'll watch quite a bit. People have their own like specific interpretation of it, but I think there are general ideas that they all generally agree upon.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just
On what?
struggled in
That's what you're
finding.
looking for.
I struggled in finding like a clear, cohesive like list of ideals.
Yeah, I
By
don't think it's like
postmodernism.
really written anywhere, but I think for somebody to read, I'd definitely read Jacques Derrida,
Post-structuralism.
something like that. Who else?
Some more
Who are the French
postmodern.
philosophers?
Foucault.
Yeah.
Let me see. Oh, Adorno. I guess that, I don't know if he might have been a different age though. Let's see.
Miles, are you coming for the next one? Can you commit? We're doing it Friday, right?
Like what time?
6:30.
I cannot.
Is that when you're
Leotard.
That's when I'm dancing. Unfortunately. If it was Thursday again, I could definitely do it.
Damn it. Do you guys want to do it Thursday again?
No, we can do it Friday.
I don't care either way.
Whichever one.
If it works better for you guys to do Friday, then we can do Friday.
Yeah.
It's probably better on Friday.
Special guest. One
Special
time
guest.
only.
When we can do Thursdays.
Got
Special Thursday
kicked
guest.
got
So
kicked off the
Miles,
show.
if you ever have something that you want to bring to the show, you can tell us, and then we can plan for the next week to be a Thursday instead of a Friday. I think that's a good way to do it.
I usually don't have things to bring.
I'm just saying, like, if
Ideas
like
to
you're
talk
just
about.
chilling, playing games, and like you think of like,
An
you
idea.
know, is it gay?
Is it-
Was
oh,
it gay?
okay.
If it's a 50-50 chance,
50-50 chance and you don't know the actual answer.
and you'll
is it
never
gay?
know.
Listen, we got asked this before.
Yeah, and I
Um,
left it for That's so
okay.
funny when
That-
you texted me. Oh my
Literally,
God.
I think we can.
I looked at my
Do that,
computer, and that's the first thing that came up. What the fuck is this?
So yeah, if you ever have anything like that you would like to bring to the podcast,
Sounds good.
Alright. Well,
Yeah.
we're losing some frames, so
are we?
good day, sir.
Oh shit! Good day.
Good day, sir.
Oh.
Good day, sir.
Oh.
Good day, sir. Good
Good
day,
day,
sir.
sir.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Good day, sirs. I can't press it. Where's the? I lost.
Wait, I didn't shake Miles's hand.
There.
They're shaking my.